Pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by advertising such notice in the Home News Tribune, the Asbury Park Press, the Board Office, the schools, and on Cablevision Channel 118 and Verizon Files Channel 24, and by filing such notice with the Township Clerk. This meeting was scheduled for Tuesday, November 21st, 2023. The Board will take formal action on payment of bills and other agenda items. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Giordano. The Old Bridge Township Board of Education acknowledges that the law of this state establishes that members of the public, including members of the board, have the right to record public board meetings using audio or video recording devices, provided that that act of recording does not interfere with the business of this public board meeting. Therefore, the board makes it known that any such recording is to be considered the private recording of the individual and in no manner represents the official record of this board. The board therefore takes no responsibility for such private recording and completely disavows any future use.
Roll call.
Ms. D'Antono? Ms. Jodry?
Present.
Ms. Lent?
Present.
Mr. Marqueta? Mr. Slade?
Here.
Mr. Singh? Mr. Solikowski?
Here.
Mr. Weber? And Mr. Giordano.
Here.
A quorum exists.
All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In memoriam, move the Board of Education acknowledge the death of Mary Alice Maher, school nurse, and August J. Garbelotto, Jr., OBHS 2015 graduate, and Lynn Sullivan, retired school secretary, and express its deepest sympathy to their family and friends. Thank you. Code of Ethics Corner, Ms. Jodry.
The board member will uphold and enforce all laws, rules, and regulations of the State Board of Education and court orders pertaining to the schools. Desired changes shall be brought about only through legal and ethical procedures.
Approval of minutes, item number 1. Can I have a motion?
Jodry will move.
Lent will second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Jodry?
Yes.
Ms. Lent?
Yes.
Mr. Slade?
Yes.
Mr. Solikowski?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
And Mr. Giordano.
Yes.
Resolution 1 passes.
We have our report of the student representative. She's not here. No, so sorry about that. Recognition items 1 and 2. Can I have a motion?
Lent will move it.
Jodry will second.
Mr. Cedino?
I believe our student representative just arrived, so if we give her one moment. I know parking was difficult tonight.
Would you like to,
Hello, everyone. My name is Nesty. For those who don't know, I'm the class president for the 2024 school year. Here to give a little report on what's been going on for the past month or so. So we are now in marking period 2 at the high school. All of our clubs are holding meetings and having events. Honor Societies are having their inductions, and everyone is hard at work. This past weekend, Senate participated in the Mayor Henry's Cleanup the Communities event. We had a good time and enjoyed helping the community. All the money we raised will be used at our lock-in type event we have scheduled for February. Various organizations in the school, such as PEER, Senate, National Honor Society, and History Honor Society, participated in a Thanksgiving food drive, where each club adopts a family and donates food. We're proud to say that as a high school, we were able to help 27 families celebrate Thanksgiving. The Marching Knights recently got second place at U.S. Bands Nationals with a score of 93.65. They are now starting their indoor percussion season. Girls volleyball just won their state division and GMC championships. The fall season has just ended, and winter sports will be starting soon. Our ShopRite just opened. Grand opening was November 16th, and students can visit anytime during lunches to grab a snack. Chinese Honor Society and Chinese Club had their annual dumpling day a month ago, where students went in, ate dumplings, and participated in a raffle to possibly win a drone. I did not win the drone. Looking forward, on December 1st, we'll be holding a SantaCon. Any junior or senior who brings in an unwrapped gift will be entered into a raffle for a prom ticket. Students are encouraged to dress in holiday costumes. On December 13th, the German Honor Society will be hosting Winterfest from 2 to 4. Tickets are $10, and students can try a spectacular array of German food, drinks, and a gingerbread house making competition. On December 11th, the Senate will host an indoor holiday movie night in the gym. Tickets are $5, and it's open to all students. Our Halloween movie night on Lombardi Field was a great success. We had about 400 people come. And when we return from holiday break, the high school will be getting busy with our annual door decorating costume, and where we just decorate the doors outside the classrooms. Everyone really loves how festive our school looks. Like, we get a lot of compliments from teachers. And that's all I have prepared. And thank you all for letting me speak.
Thank you very much. Mr. Cedino, would you like to present the recognitions?
Well,
Let me,
Yes,
yeah,
Dan.
let me go
Yep.
over the retirements. Okay, we have 3 retirements this month. Georgette Nimberger, Transportation Bus Aid, 21 years of service. Keith Cosins, Old Bridge High School Physical Ed, 30 years. Stephanie Glickman, GNC Secretary, 28 years. With a total of 79 years, the board wishes you a lot of luck on your retirement. Thank you.
So at this time, we're going to have the resolution to move the board to recognize the following high school athletic teams for their accomplishments for the fall season. If I could have our athletic director, Mr. Domino, go to the dais. I will join you over there with the plaques in a moment. But we're going to recognize the cheerleading team. They were the White Division Game Day champions. We're going to recognize the field hockey team because they were the White Division champions. And our girls volleyball team were the Red Division champions and conference champions. So another round of applause for all 3 of those teams.
All right, so we're going to start with girls volleyball first, and they were back-to-back Red Division GMC champions and conference champions. Coach Hopman and the varsity team is here to get the reward. Next up, we'll have Coach Fuentes and the varsity field hockey team on back-to-back White Division champions. And last, we have our cheerleading team with Coach Coutinho, who won the White Division Game Day competition. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Domino, and thank you, teams. That was wonderful. I'd like to see that, point out that the girls volleyball team, first time I recall seeing that, had a male manager, and the cheerleading team had, I think, three or four guys on the team. So that's great to see.
Thank you, Mr. Cedino and Mr. Domino. Any more discussion from the board? Okay. Roll call.
Ms. Jodry,
Yes.
Ms. Lent,
Yes.
Mr. Slade,
Yes.
Mr. Singh,
Yes.
Mr. Silikowski,
Yes.
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Mr. Antono,
Yes.
and Mr. Giordano.
Yes.
Resolutions 1 and 2 pass.
Superintendent's report and progress towards goals.
Thank you, Mr. Giordano. I want to start off superintendent's report just with a kind of like an advisory point of view from a superintendent. Last week's meeting had me very concerned and very upset about some of the actions. So I just want to go over a few things that are general house rules for these types of meetings. I want you to take in mind that this is not the town council, and it's not a disparaging marker on town council, but it's not town council, it's not state legislature, it's not a U.S. facility. This is a high school. This is a classroom. This is an extension of a classroom. There are students in here right now who are fulfilling their high school credit obligations by doing this as a work-study program. So while the conduct or things you might say at an all-adult capacity might be acceptable, the conduct and things we say in this room, you have to remember you are a guest in a classroom to where students are learning. So please keep that in mind. Because last week, on both sides of whatever part of the discussion you are, and I'm sure there's room for lots of opinions on it, and that's why we're a democracy and we get together and have our opinions and we voice our opinions. But when you do so, you address your opinions to the board and to the administration. That's where your comment goes to, not to each other, not back and forth. And that happened on both sides of the discussion last week, and it's unacceptable. And when that happens, people get passionate and attack, a room that has teachers in it. And, I think if you're attacking teachers in your argument, then it's ignorance to the highest degree. These are the people who look over your children, protect your children, and look out for your children in locus parentis when you're not there to look out for them. So please keep that in mind. Board members, administration, we signed up for the job. I know, sure as heck, I could take some abuse. I took it for the past 3 years. I can, if you want to say something to me, say something to me. But when you talk about kids, you've crossed the line. When you've talked about kids from this district, kids in this school, you're just done. I'm not going to have you here. I'm not going to ask for permission to ban you from the district, because I'll never ask permission to protect the kids from this district. I will just do it. So, we can all have a conversation civilly. You can all express your views civilly, but just know what's off limits. And I would protect everybody's children the same. And my my rule of thumb when I got into this job, and when I talk to my teachers about it all the time, and my administrators, they all know it. I look at every class when I do an observation, would I want my child in this classroom? And if the answer is no, then I have a problem. But if the answer is yes, because I want everyone to treat everyone's child as if they're your own. Talk to every kid in this district as if you talk to my children, and as if you talk to your own children. That's a simple rule I think we could all follow, because we're a great community. Speaking of a great community, we have a special guest tonight under Superintendent's report. One of the brightest stars coming from our schools is Kavya. Kavya is in the back over there, and Kavya, please come up to the podium. Kavya, I've said your name 50 times, and I've said it 50 different ways, your last name. But I'm going to go with Venkatesan. Venkatesan. There you go. So, Kavya Venkatesan.
Yeah.
And you may not know her name now, but you'll know it one day, because this young lady has achieved miraculous things since I first met her as, I think it was maybe in 3rd grade. And she's been going up the ranks and doing amazing things ever since, getting recognition across the state and across the nation. Well, like most 16-year-olds, she wrote a book. She's a published author. It's How to Thrive in a Changing World from the words of a 16-year-old. I'll just read the book back jacket because she's probably going to be, she's not talking about herself is not what she does best. She'll talk about a lot of things. But How to Thrive in a Changing World is more than just a roadmap for navigating a rapidly evolving world. The 16 chapters are packed with in-depth insight into balance, into the spheres of life. It is a journey of self-development for anyone who wants to adapt on their feet and own their future. The book is a rare balance of authenticity, brevity, and clarity. Kavya describes herself as a 16-year-old tech optimist, high flyer, researcher, speaker. She develops scholarly behaviors and considers knowledge through the perspective of disciplinarians. She is passionate about empowering youth to the next generation of leaders and entrepreneurs. Kavya has shared her thought about leadership and top-level executives with boards of directors and future readiness, sustainability, and adapting to the digital world. She has received many prestigious educational leadership and service awards. So, Kavya, why don't you tell us a little about your book, and then we'll do a little plug at the end.
For sure. First of all, thank you so much for the kind words, and I want to thank the board for the opportunity to present this today. And yes, my book title is How to Thrive in a Changing World. So as we all know, our world is just moving at a lightning speed. It's becoming more technologically driven. All information is just one click away. And so I thought, for a young person like myself, all of these possibilities were kind of overwhelming. So how do we navigate all of that? How do we adapt? Not just in school, but you're going to have to do it in college, career, and beyond. And so I felt like students kind of needed a book from another student because you kind of go through the same experiences. So I wrote this book, and it's my take as a 16-year-old on what I think is necessary to lead a life of high impact and growth in today's world. And so everything in this book is from my experiences in school, leadership in and out of school, internships, work experience, and I kind of just distilled it all into these 16 chapters. So it's filled with frameworks, stories, lots of stories, and strategies. And I'm really just hoping that young people who pick up this book really gain a lot and just feel that they can do it because they can do whatever they put their mind to. And I do want to thank my Old Bridge community and all the teachers for just instilling in me the character and confidence that has really inspired the thought process and learning journey behind this book. I'm so grateful for that, and hopefully this book is first of many to come. But yes, thank you so much for your time and support, and yeah.
So Kavya, you'll have a few copies over there, I see.
Yes,
You'll
I
be
do.
signing them?
Signing and selling them for sure.
How much do they sell for?
Each one is $10.
That is very reasonable, because I think it's, someone's going to go on Antique Roadshow 30 years from now and say they have a Kavya original they bought for $10. So make sure you get your copy today. I've already received mine. and all the best, and thank you for being a shining star in the community, Kavya.
Thank you so much. It wouldn't be without Old Bridge.
The last thing I want to talk to you about is something that's been in the news and just our perspective and our role in it. And the federal government and the state government put out grant applications for high-impact tutoring grant. Again, this is all part of the the back end of a pandemic and trying to address learning loss across the nation. And so Old Bridge did what Old Bridge does, and we applied for the grants, and we were one of the recipients to receive the grant money. So just a little bit about it. The High Impact Tutoring Grant is a competitive grant that Old Bridge Public Schools applied for in September of 2023. And we were awarded quickly and received $460,000 for this grant and funding for beginning for November into the 23-24 school year. This district has submitted the required amendment to the New Jersey Department of Education and is awaiting further notice of how we can reallocate these funds and posting for things such as tutors, hiring and training, and inviting our students. We had originally planned as a district to start the program in November. However, with the delay of notification from the Department of Education, we are aiming for a January 2024 start. A little bit about the grant application. The grant application prioritized district with plans to implement tutoring supports in ELA and math for students in 3rd and 4th grades. So if your question is, hey, my child is 6th grader, are they going to get the tutoring? No, because it wasn't available to students in those grade levels. To get the grant, you had to target students in the 3rd and 4th grade. Our application was consistent with providing supports for 3rd and 4th graders. We analyzed state and district data to support our application process and found many strengths of our ELA and math in our own district benchmark data. We found that through the EZCBM data, our overall reading scores for the spring 2023, our third graders, over 86% of them are on grade level. Our 4th graders, over 82% of them are on grade level. Through the IXL data, we realized that 3rd graders, the average is 110 points above their fall benchmark scores. So on average, each student demonstrated a 110-point gain since the fall. 4th graders had a 138-point average gain since the fall benchmark data. The IXL program expects that 10 points per month for a school year of students. So 100-point average is what IXL expects. And our students were clearly above that in the 3rd and 4th grade. And that kind of made it a challenge in this application because, to put it bluntly, we didn't have enough learning loss to support what the state was looking for in this area. So this data was consistent with some of the other data we looked at, the percentages of students receiving Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions for 3rd and 4th graders. 3rd graders, that is approximately 17% of them, and 4th graders, that's about 18% of them. Statistically, districts should come to expect about 20% of the students on average receiving these intervention services. So even our own data for our students in intervention, we are below the average requirement of students receiving intervention supports. So after carefully considering the information outlined above, the district determined that our strengths in our recurrent classroom instruction and our RTI program warranted us drilling down deeper into the data to determine the high priority areas for the tutoring program. The priority areas that will be targeted in this tutoring program will be ELA comprehension, literal text, vocabulary, written expression, writing strategies, grammar, and mechanics. So we kind of like did a laser-like focus on what areas, because overall in ELA we didn't have enough weakness, so we wanted to work on specific skills to make it a successful application to the grant. In mathematics, we're going to focus on reasoning and modeling, algebra and algebraic thinking, and geometry. Grade 3 students also demonstrated an area of need in the data probability and statistics, while grade 4 students had measurements in reading level. So here's the plans for the program. So if you're listening at home and want to know if your 3rd or 4th grader can qualify, students will be invited to participate in the program based upon their needs. Students will be offered 5 days a week per targeted tutoring. Each session will be 45 minutes. Student groups will be 1 to 3 students in a group. So we're looking at small student group interaction. So they have a greater teacher-to-student ratio. Tutors will be Old Bridge Township Public School teachers who apply for the program and are selected through the interview process. Tutors will be provided with ongoing training and coaching of evidence-based intervention programs. The program will include ongoing data analysis and feedback to classroom teachers, interventionists, and special education teachers. The program will also include parental communication and conferences specifically for students involved in the peer tutoring, in the tutoring program. Funding will support hiring of tutors, trainings, and purchasing of materials. I want to thank our many principals and instructional leaders in our classrooms for helping us with this process, and of course, Dr. Calandria, who assisted in putting the application in as a driving force behind this. So, thank you very much. That concludes the superintendent's report. Don't forget Kavya's back there.
Thank you. Any correspondence? Special committee reports?
Yes, we had a curriculum meeting on October 26th, and we covered 4 different topics, and I'll go over them. At the elementary ELA update, Ms. Alexis Affendoli, I believe, if I mispronounce your name, I apologize, provided an overview of the implementation of the work program at the elementary level. This included a presentation on the resources and professional opportunities provided to the district staff during the summer and the start of the school year. Secondary social studies and English resources. Ms. Gina Simon and Mrs. Dana Sampson provided an overview of the implementation of the Study Sync ELA materials for grades 6 through 8. Mr. Rocco Celentano provided an overview of the new social studies material, grades 6 through 12. He also mentioned that we're starting to teach civics again, right?
Yes.
Fantastic. Belongs here. Number 3, music production program explained. Mr. Colin Bell provided an overview of the high school music production program. He did an excellent job. These kids are becoming, they're actually writing their own music and putting it all together. A fantastic job he did. And he also covered the production 2 course implemented for 24-25. And I gave an overview of the summer program that I used to run here for about 20 years, and internship program for students to work throughout the district. This proposal would have to be budgeted for the 24-25 school year, and the important thing is develop a clear application process for students applying for the program. That's what we covered, and our next meeting is going to be on the 30th of the month, which is next Thursday. Thank you very much.
I do want to add that we're expanding civics, not introducing it. So.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Thank you. Any other? Yep.
On November 1st, we had the DEI committee. We finalized the school climate survey. It's an anonymous optional survey. It's going to first go out to teachers, and then next it's going to go out to parents, and parents will have the option to also have their child completed if they want to. We will compile the data and talk about it in the January meeting. We don't have a date for that yet. Oh, do we? Yes. January 24th, I believe it is. Yes.
Also, on November 1st, we had the CARE Committee, the Community Awareness, Relations, and Engagement. We are discussing the website and our website provider. Dr. Hoker's office was working with a few vendors to get some information and some pricing quotes. So we also canceled December's meeting, but January 24th, her and her team will present the new information, and we'll look at the website we have compared to if we want to change it up.
And last Tuesday, we had a Policy, Health, and Safety Committee meeting that was actually held in the high school cafeteria. Part of the agenda was to have Mr. Parton do policy updates, but we skipped straight ahead to Policy 5756. We want to give the community an opportunity to hear them out. We had about over 200 people show up to the meeting. We heard from over 30 people at the podium. These committee meetings are very important, as I've mentioned in the past. Any decisions that we make is based on the feedback that we get from the public and from parents and concerned citizens. That helps us make our decisions. So we had a lot of civilized conversations, a lot of back and forth, a lot of passion in the room, but it's very important for us to do our jobs when we get feedback from the public. So I think it was very informative. Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Okay. Moving on to hearing of the residents on agenda items only. Policy, first reading. Any questions or discussion? Curriculum and professional development, items 1 through 4. Can I have a motion?
Lent will move it.
Jody will second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Slade?
Yes.
Mr. Singh?
Yes.
Mr. Silikowski?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Ms. D'Antono?
Yes.
Ms. Jodry?
Yes.
Ms. Lent?
Yes.
Mr. Giordano?
Yes.
Resolutions 1 through 4 pass.
Finance, items 1 through 9. Can I have a motion?
D'Antuno will move.
Jody.
Lent will second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Slade?
Yes.
Mr. Singh?
Yes.
Mr. Silikowski?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Ms. D'Antono?
Yes.
Ms. Jodry? Ms. Jodry?
Yes.
Ms. Lent?
Yes.
And Mr. Giordano?
Yes.
Resolutions 1 through 9 pass.
Athletics, items 1 and 2. Can I have a motion?
Jody will move.
D'Antuno will second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Singh?
Yes.
Mr. Silikowski?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Ms. D'Antono?
Yes.
Ms. Jodry?
Yes.
Ms. Lent?
Yes.
Mr. Slade?
Yes.
And Mr. Giordano?
Yes.
Resolutions 1 and 2 pass.
Non-certificated personnel office, items 1 through 3. Can I have a motion?
D'Antuno.
Go.
D'Antuno will move.
Lent will second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Silikowski?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Ms. D'Antono?
Yes.
Ms. Jodry?
Yes.
Ms. Lent?
Yes.
Mr. Slade?
Yes.
Mr. Singh?
Yes.
And Mr. Giordano?
Yes.
Resolutions 1 through 3 pass.
Non-certificated personnel operational, items 1 and 2. Can I have a motion?
Slate will move.
Jody will second.
Any questions or discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Ms. D'Antono?
Yes.
Ms. Jodry?
Yes.
Ms. Lent?
Yes.
Mr. Slade?
Yes.
Mr. Singh?
Yes.
Mr. Silikowski?
Yes.
And Mr. Giordano?
No for 1A, yes for the rest.
Resolutions 1 and 2 pass.
Non-certificated personnel, other, items 1 through 6. Can I have a motion?
D'Antuno will move.
Jody will second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Ms. D'Antono?
Yes.
Ms. Jodry?
Yes.
Ms. Lent?
Yes.
Mr. Slade?
Yes.
Mr. Singh?
Yes.
Mr. Silikowski?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
And Mr. Giordano?
Yes.
Resolutions 1 through 6 passed.
Certificated personnel, items 1 through 19. Can I have a motion? 15, items 1 through 15. Can I have a motion?
Jody will move.
D'Antuno will second.
Any discussion?
Yes.
Ms. Lent?
Yes.
Mr. Slade?
Yes.
Mr. Singh?
Yes.
Mr. Silikowski?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Ms. D'Antono?
Yes.
And Mr. Giordano?
Yes.
Resolutions 1 through 15 pass.
Non-certificated personnel transportation, items 1 and 2. Can I have a motion?
D'Antuno will move.
Lent will second.
Any discussion?
Yes. I've known Ms. Unglert from my days growing up in Voorhees, and any of the Voorhees alumni would remember her as a smiling face and always taking care of the kids, so I'm very excited to see her take over transportation. Congratulations.
Thank you. Anyone else? Roll call.
Ms. Lent?
Yes.
Mr. Slade?
Yes.
Mr. Singh?
Yes.
Mr. Silikowski?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Ms. D'Antono?
Yes.
Ms. Jodry?
Yes.
And Mr. Giordano.
Yes.
Resolutions 1 and 2 pass.
I just want to make a comment about Miss Unglert, if I can, because I've known her for a long time, too, ever since her daughter, Princess Diana, was in 6th grade at Salk School. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about, we talk about a great community this is, the character of people, and what's a good thing to have the support of the people around you. So we did the interviews, and right after Miss Unglert's interview, Mary comes in for the next interview. That's Mary sitting next to her. And so we start typically with the interviews, after we get through the stuff of like, do you have any relatives on the board or things like that? Then we get to the first question is, so why do you want to be the director of transportation? She responds, I don't want to be the director of transportation. I'm just here to tell you that Debbie should be the director of transportation. So I took an interview spot to tell you what a great person that Debbie is and why I'm here to support her. So that was like the classiest act I've ever seen, and you got a good friend there, and congratulations, Ms. Unglert.
Thank you. Transportation, items 1 through 3. Can I have a motion?
D'Antuno will move.
Lent will second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Slade?
Yes.
Mr. Singh?
Yes.
Mr. Silikowski?
Yes.
Mr. Weber? Ms. D'Antono?
Yes.
Ms. Jodry?
Yes.
Ms. Lent?
Yes.
And Mr. Giordano.
Yes.
Resolutions 1 through 3 pass.
Supplies, equipment, and services, items 1 through 4. Can I have a motion?
Jodry will move.
Lent will second.
Any discussion?
Separating number 4 for discussion.
Mr. Solkowski?
Yes, are they gonna replace the lifts in the auto shop? Is the alignment rack one of them? Now, we have 3 lifts, I believe, in one room, and the other room has, what, 1 or 2?
All I can say is that the other shop, the lifts were replaced last summer. These will be replaced, not repaired, replaced. As soon as you vote on this, we'll start the process.
That's all 5 of them?
I don't do an
Okay.
inventory on how many there
Okay,
are.
okay. Because I worked that program for many years. One has 2 lifts and an alignment rack,
Mhm.
and the other room has 2 lifts.
Okay. So I think this, if you're facing them, this is the room to the left.
Okay, the room to the left, okay. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Slade?
Yes.
Mr. Singh?
Yes.
Mr. Silikowski?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Ms. D'Antono?
Yes.
Ms. Jodry?
Yes.
Ms. Lent?
Yes.
And Mr. Giordano.
Yes.
Resolutions 1 through 4 pass.
Miscellaneous, items 1 through 4. Can I have a motion?
D'Antuno will move.
Any discussion?
Who
Roll
was
call.
that? I'm sorry, who was that first?
D'Antuono and Weber. Roll call.
Mr. Singh?
Yes.
Mr. Silikowski?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Ms. D'Antono?
Yes.
Ms. Jodry? Ms. Lent?
Yes.
Mr. Slade?
Yes.
And Mr. Giordano.
Yes.
Resolutions 1 through 4 pass.
Board Secretary and Board Business, item number 1. Can I have a motion?
Lent will move it.
Jodry will second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Silikowski?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mr. Antono?
Yes.
Ms. Jodry?
Yes, and I look forward to working with the three of you.
Ms. Lent?
Yes.
Mr. Slade?
Yes.
Mr. Singh?
Yes.
And Mr. Giordano.
Yes.
Resolution 1 passes.
Hearing of the residents on any school district issue.
I know that some people came in after I gave them a little spiel, just a brief version of it. When you're making your comment, direct all your comments to the board at the dais up here. Do not direct them, do not interact with other members of the audience, do not give hand signals, do not just vote your displeasure with anything that anyone else says. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, and we will carry this with decorum.
All right. Hi, everyone.
Everyone has to state their name and where they live.
Okay. I'm Amy Callista. I live in Matawan, Old Bridge Township. And, you know, the board and many others have seen me speak at the previous policy meetings. So you know that I'm passionate about keeping this policy, and you've heard my reasons as to why, you know, I support it. So tonight I'm trying to learn from the previous meetings, and I'm hoping to spread more positivity. Many of us have been at the same policy meetings together, so we might think we know where the other side is coming from. But each person has a different story, experience in their life, something that has shaped them to believe in their position. How much can we grow in this community and as people by connecting more, right? Asking questions, being inquisitive, and being open to learn from one another. Now, while we may have very, very varying views on this policy, I believe we can find common ground in our shared desire to get something positive out of all of this. To try to not let our emotions and passions cause us to have a rift between each other, because that just keeps getting bigger and it turns our community into a more segregated one, which is a bad look and tough to be proud to live in. So let's be honest, most of us are not going to change our opinion on this policy. For me tonight, I want people to acknowledge how brave it was for several transgender children to come up here and speak their opinion. I know I could never do that at their age. So I hope to spread a message for people to connect with transgender youth and adults and others that identify with other gender identities, such as non-binary and gender fluid. I encourage parents to talk to their kids about this and to also encourage them to connect with someone at school that has these different gender identities, and let them know that you respect them, that you understand that they deal with hard challenges in life, and if they need anything, that you are a supportive person to talk to. That really goes a long way to help us come closer and fight against fear, discrimination, and bullying. Okay, so, and lastly, we need to work together to, you know, help the underdogs in this world, to help all children that need our support, and to help those that are underrepresented, minorities, and marginalized groups in our communities that could really use support. So we know that the board may have already decided how they will vote on this policy, but I do hope the board has gone through the process of reflecting. What I would love to see more of from the board is them connecting with us and sharing their views more. You know, asking questions, and most important, giving us the confidence that they understand the policy and everything that the public has brought up. You know, there were only a few board members that asked clarifying questions to Chris. Mr. Slate was brave enough to ask several questions about the legal repercussions for rescinding the policy, as well as facts he wanted clarity about. And I really commend you for that. We learned that there were 3 points that Mr. Slate had the wrong idea about, in which Chris was able to clear up for him and all of us. And it just made me wonder, you know, if one board member was asking for clarifications at this point, how many other board members need to understand the policy, understand the legal facts, and understand each viewpoint and opinion that is being raised? There were 3 people that shared their position about the policy, and I really want to thank them for doing this. It would be tremendously helpful for all of us to hear what your position is and why you feel that way, based on what facts and how you weighed the severity of each point made by the public. Just for the rest of us, you know, we need to ensure our facts are reliable so the board can make a decision that is informed, rational, and respectful. So let us all try for us to transcend our personal bias and make this town more connected, where every individual is respected and we can enrich our lives by learning more about each other. Let's focus and devote our time to leading and participating in positive initiatives in our community that really help those that need it the most. And to the board, I encourage you to ask more questions, be open to learning, and share more with the public so we can learn along with you and help us to weed out incorrect information and differentiate between the facts and what should not be considered regarding this policy. Thank you.
I think the last time I was up here was when there was a battle over a contract. My name's Nina Jochnowitz, Old Bridge resident. So I wanted to start with some public events that happened in the last couple years, the last decade here in Old Bridge. There was a lawsuit in the middle school in 2007, not sure if anybody remembers this, where a student was abused because he identified as gay and he was Jewish. The lawsuit was successful for the student, but it wasn't successful in the fact that he was emotionally damaged over it. The second case that happened here in this township was Shane Duddle. He was outed to his foster family by a high school teacher. It resulted in him being kicked out. That was in 2012, and perhaps the president of the council might actually remember him from school. He was kicked out of his foster home, put into a group home. It, of course, compromised his education because Old Bridge has great education, and he had to leave the district. But all of this got me thinking. I was sitting here this past weekend with my son. He happened to come with me, thank you. He's only 18, and I realized that he was 6 years old when the first marriage equity law had been passed in New York, 12 years ago. So I know there are people on the board or in this audience who are uncomfortable with the homosexual, transsexual, non-binary, and then some labels. I get it. It was just yesterday, or so it seemed like just yesterday, that you found out we could get married to the person we loved regardless of their gender. So you're scared. Is it cooties? No. We are born with a code inside of us. Its path is etched in stone. I'm sorry. These children who identify themselves may first come out to their friends, perhaps maybe to their teachers, maybe yours or mine. Not knowing something about our children's lives may terrify us, but there are more important lessons going on in our schools. There's real learning, science, math, English, the arts, people writing great books. The kids are engaged with their friends, they're making commitments, they're having first crushes, and massive disappointments. I remember those all. I know I might have wanted to know each and every one of those moments with regard to my son, but it was also for him, my son, to tell me when or if he ever wanted to. We have to love and respect our children. So this brings us to tonight, the Rule 5756. It's a bit intimidating not to know everything about our children and to be afraid somebody else knows before us. I get it. But I hate to say it, please get used to it. It's what happens these years. This is what happens when they start to think about their future, make academic and social decisions. It's part of growing up when they begin to make the decisions for themselves. Let your children be raised with the privacy they expect, the safety and the protections that are here in our schools. Of course, why fret over a rule which doesn't apply to 99% of the kids? Keep the Rule 5756 intact. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Anne. I live in Old Bridge. I'm the mother of 3. My oldest, oh, sorry. Hi, I'm Anne. I live in Old Bridge. I have 3 children. Oldest is transgender, and I'm sure you'll remember the last time we were here, a gentleman came up here and spoke, and my daughter and I call him Santa Claus, and he targeted my daughter. He verbally assaulted her. He called her a he and a sexual deviant. I want to do an exercise with the board because I just want you to feel what we feel. I want you to close your eyes if you don't mind, if you feel comfortable. And my mom used to say, put yourself in their shoes. And she would say, just imagine yourself. You're a student, you're in Old Bridge, you're wearing Crocs or whatever's trendy, I don't even know. And then you're questioning your gender. So you confide in your favorite teacher. You go home that day and a call comes in from the school. They want to talk to your dad and tell him everything you told your teacher. And you know who your dad is? Bad Santa. That's who your dad is. He's not going to hug you. He's not going to tell you, I love you no matter what, sweetie. I'm not saying he's going to be physically abusive necessarily, but he was easily emotionally abusive to my child. So what's going to stop him from doing it again? And the Journal of American Medical, I'm saying it wrong, JAMA, whatever it stands for. But in 2015, they found that emotional abuse is equally as detrimental to mental and behavioral health as violent abuse. And then I felt really bad for yelling at my kids as much as I do. But I just want you to know these kids need to be protected. And you just saw a little taste of what my daughter goes through. And I just feel like this policy needs to stand as is to protect these students. I just want you to know, last time one transgender student stood up, and you know why other students didn't stand up? They don't feel safe. You know why other parents of transgender kids didn't stand up? Because they can't. They don't feel safe for their kids, maybe outing their child. I had multiple parents come up to me after the meeting last week, parents of transgender children who thanked me because they can't speak. And I just want you to know, for as many people who are speaking in favor of this policy, there's so many more who can't speak because they don't feel safe. I also just wanted to address some things that were brought up at the last meeting. Quickly, bathrooms, it was brought up about girls being raped in bathrooms because of this, and I just want people to know the facts. At my daughter's school, there is 9 stalls in the bathroom. 1 student goes in at a time, and a teacher is always in there. I would be very shocked if anyone's getting raped in the bathroom, so let's not bring that issue up again. The locker rooms, people talked about they don't want, male genitals changing next to female genitals. That doesn't happen. They asked my daughter to change in the nurse's room. No problem. The poor kid has to run across the school back and forth, but she doesn't complain. And a lot of people stood up here last meeting, and they said that they don't have a problem with transgender people. They're just against parental rights. I don't want my parental rights taken away. But this policy is not about taking your rights away as a parent. This policy, I feel like politicians are making you think that your rights are being taken away because their end goal is taking away basic human rights from transgender children. And I just hope you'll vote in favor of keeping the policy and protecting the kids. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. My name is Joe Monagas. I'm an Old Bridge resident. Went to my first meeting last week, very passionate, a lot of sincerity, a lot of passion, but what I came out of that with was a couple of things, and one of two maybe, there was a lot of miscategorizations in my opinion. There was some flawed logic and reason, and that is really the starting point. I have the policy in front of me, and one of the categories here we see gender identity is not the same as gender assigned at birth. Okay, is that true? Is that really scientifically viable? And then there was a couple of things about, assigned sex at birth with the issuance of certificates. Should such a record be provided at birth? So gender on a birth certificate, is that scientifically viable? If a child goes to get treated in a hospital, can a doctor treat them the same way? Well, in any event, just a category error for myself. LGBTQ Now, is the acronym for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer questioning. And by all means, if a child has feelings of homosexual feelings, is that the same thing? Is mutilation? Is someone changing their gender and their body parts? Is that the same? And do parents not have a right to know? Is that where we're going with this? It seemed that way to me. And in terms of the bathrooms and in terms of bad Santa, that's not the majority. I think the vast majority of Old Bridge parents are reputable, respectful parents and have a right to know as well. So now, if you're going with the bathroom here, there can be a better chance of molestation. It's just a reality. I hope that's not the case, but it's a probability by all means. And Superintendent, I believe you. I know you care, and each and every one of us should care about the protection of children. But what about the 97 to 98% of children that do not prescribe to this non-binary or transgenderism? What about the girl that's going to play sports? You have some language here, and correct me if I'm wrong. Provide, and this is page 7. The school district shall provide transgender students with the same opportunities to participate in physical education as other students in accordance to their gender identity. Does that mean gym and sports? Well, that could be very emotionally and physically unhealthy for women. Is anybody thinking about young women as well? Okay, what about the many others who this is going to affect? Maybe we're not thinking about the others, but it will. And that's really all I have. I think 5756 in the long run will be a catastrophe for the children. I think it will be for society. And I just don't see this as being something very healthy for the world. Look, I know people don't feel all the same, and there's a lot of children struggling with some things. But these categories really have to be a little more defined. Because if we're not going to tell someone who's thinking about a boy becoming a girl, we're not going to tell their parents. Where are we going, folks? Have we lost our minds? Thank you.
Once again, I'm shorter than the microphone. Hi, my name is Marae. Last time I mentioned I was resident of Old Bridge over 40 years, one of 7 family members who graduated from Old Bridge school system. I am speaking again today on policy 5756, which we need to keep. After witnessing last meeting's fiasco of a whole grown man, a fellow Old Bridge resident, a parent, attack a child of our town in front of everyone like that was normal behavior in front of her own mother. This was a complete stranger attacking an unknown child. So imagine if he was a parent with a child of a transgender. Everyone uses the slogan parental rights. Where was the parental rights of that mother to raise her child in a town that is supposed to be safe? I don't know how anyone who sat there, who witnessed this display of hate, could be in agreement with his behavior. That is not what Old Bridge is about. In case many don't get it, outing does lead to violence or even having their own child kicked out of their home. For those who don't believe kids get hurt by their parent or that parents would kick their kids out, I will share 3 stories of 3 Old Bridge kids. Ironically, I didn't even know Nina knew a few of her own stories. One was a child who was gender fluid. His parents kicked him out. He literally was living behind 7-Eleven on 516 across from Burger King for 2 weeks. So for Old Bridge residents who have been here long enough and heard that rumor, yes, someone was living behind 7-Eleven. It was a 16-year-old boy. When I asked him why he didn't tell me, he already knew how his parents were. The other kid was confused if he was bi or not. His parent put him in a slap box match to see if he was man enough. The boy was put out. There was even an Old Bridge Amber Alert for him. And then when the child came back home, his mom signed him over to the state. Third child wasn't even gay, wasn't even transgender. He was simply put out for having ADHD and behavior issues. Mind you, all 3 boys were only 16, came from 2 parents' homes, and lived in home where Old Bridge is supposed to be affluent. Mind you, this was within the last 4 years. Again, Old Bridge is about community, for as long as I've known. For all, no one gets left behind. This policy was created because one was needed to maintain and run a school like all other company and jobs. They have policies which are needed of how to handle each situation in school. The BOE lawyer stated at last meeting, the policy says parents don't need to be notified, but it also doesn't prohibit schools from notifying the parents. As Leo said last time, start doing your homework as a parent, parenting your child. Everything is online and accessible by all. The name preference record that is kept in the school is not given to anybody outside of the school. It's not given to secondary institutions, it's not given to military services, and so forth. These conspiracies that keep getting pushed into our town is tearing apart our town. I've been here 40 years. This is ridiculous that I've never gone to a BOE meeting since the last week, and now I have to start showing up. Teachers and school systems have been the same for centuries, and the same since we as adults were once a child. More than half our teachers are lifelong residents. Police are lifelong residents. If you think teachers are all this rhetoric that they're surrounding and grooming kids and they're doctoring and communists and so forth, well, then you're in a town full of them. And based on my family's success of everybody getting into colleges, military services, police chiefs, being productive adults, homeowners, including the youngest cousin being in Harvard, including a child that I have in his 20s that was on an IEP 15 plus years ago. He had a lisp and a stutter. Within 6 months, school knocked it out. That's what Old Bridge School System's about, taking care of every single child, no matter what the situation. Lastly, I do want to commend Scott. He deserves a standing ovation. He stood up for a child in our town when others were silent. That's what our town is about, keeping all our kids safe, making sure they succeed in school and graduate to be a productive adult. And as BOE members, I know your main goal is to keep all our kids safe and that our school system continues to function for the years. Thank you.
Don't worry, Mayor. I'm going to keep this lower anyway. I need a load too. My name is Krista Fisher, and I'm an Old Bridge resident. I would like to challenge any board member choosing to oppose 5756 to Google search parent kills their transgender teen on their phone. There are multiple stories. The horrific crimes you'll see pop up were committed because some teenagers are truly not safe in their own homes. If a child knows that they're not safe at home, school might be the only outlet where they could feel safe, and we need to keep it that way. I'm a mother and I love my son. I love him so soulfully and unconditionally that it sickens me knowing that there are teens out there who have good reasons to be scared of their own parents. When I say unconditional, if this kid tells me he likes country music, I'll still love him. I'm not a fan, I'm scarred. I was a hostess at Lone Star years ago, and it still stays with me. I will always strive to be the kind of parent who my son could come to with anything he's facing, and know that I will always love him. But the sad reality is that not every student is going to have that. There are parents who won't love their children unconditionally. Parents who would harm their children if they revealed to them that they were transgender. This policy was put into place to keep vulnerable youth safe. It has been in place for so many years. Why is it an issue now? If you're a concerned parent about what's going on in your child's life, one thing I actually agreed with Mr. Marchetta, and he said it last week, be an involved parent. Talk to your child about what they're feeling and they're thinking, but let's not continue to have these meetings devolve into anti-LGBTQ rants. Let's not keep invoking God to justify hatred surfaced by a policy designed to keep children safe in public schools. Everyone, regardless of their gender identity, deserves to be safe. Thank you.
Hold on. Good evening. Hi, I'm Kim Lindley. I'm from Old Bridge. My kids went to Old Bridge. And tonight, I just want to review some things. And I want to thank the board for their time and effort and consideration that you take for the academic learning and the safety of all students. So I want to start off with Thank you for taking the time to rescind 5756. This suggestive amendment has many areas of concern: teacher-parent relationships, parental rights, the First Amendment, division, and the special education student. There are other areas as well, but due to time constraints, I would like to address a few. The teacher-parent relationship affects the student performance. When there is an active, clear communication between both parties, the student will be the one to benefit. If 5756 is not rescinded, then the student is the one to suffer. The reason would be due to the lack of trust the parent would have with the teacher. 5756 allows the teacher not to provide the parent with the gender the student identifies as. Also, the student is allowed to use the bathroom, participate in activities that the student identifies as. In addition, another separate of the line file of the student is kept on record. The information is kept from parent until the student wants to inform the parent. Okay, and another thing for review, which I discussed last time, and the significance, that's why I'm bringing it up again, is the brain. The brain in another area of concern that I would like to address. An article by Mental Health Daily was written, "At what age is the brain fully developed?" The development of the brain is a significant part of a child's personality and identity. I would like to highlight some important facts. A fully developed brain is between 25 and 30. The prefrontal cortex is developing between 18 and 25. During puberty, the prefrontal cortex begins to develop. Impulsivity and goal setting is difficulty during this time. Reward system gratification is heightened during puberty, which returns back to normal at age 25. Organized thinking. Hormones affect the concentration in organized thinking. Personality development. The prefrontal cortex is responsible to the personality development. When there is poor stimulation, the prefrontal cortex is a cortex. A child may struggle with identifying issues with a favorable personality. 8, decision making. Teenagers have poor judgment when making sound decisions. Another important part of the prefrontal cortex plays in the logical thinking and the aids in learning to assess situations. Also, making a good versus bad decision is connected by the development of the prefrontal cortex. In regards to parental rights, I'm responsible for my kids getting to school. I'm responsible for relaying information as a teacher, as a parent. That line is so significant. And there's an article that I found, and there's many research studies that have been found. So the name of the article happens to be Teacher-Parent Communication Strategies to Start the Year Off Right. The study suggests that parental involvement can lead to academic gains for students, higher grades, test scores, improved social skills, and time on task, better attendance and participation, and decreased behavioral problems in the classroom. The next thing, establishing a strong relationship and clear lines of communication at the beginning of the year sets a strong foundation for both parent and teacher interaction. And again, the student is the one to benefit. And with 5756, what I got out of it is trust would be broken. So where this article and other studies show that it's imperative and it impacts them, and then when there is lack of, I worked in a district that the parents always weren't involved, and it does play an important impact on their academic performance in math and reading. Those were two of the areas that they touched on. The other thing I wanted to discuss is I reviewed policy 56 while I was sitting here, and it said that when a student decides a student need not only meet a threshold diagnosis or treatment requirements to have his or her gender identity recognized and respected by the school district, school or school staff members. You know, and as it was said before, that in order to give a child medicine, it needs a parent's rights. So with the delusion of when a child is in school given by this, in a parent's perspective, the child is living a doubled life. So,
I'm sorry. Thank you very much.
oh, thank you very much for your time. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. Thank you again.
Good evening, Koji Hamanaka, Old Bridge resident. Last week, when I addressed the board concerning policy 5756, I listed my concerns specifically about the confidentiality and privacy in school records portions. As you said, Mr. Slade, those are not the only items of concern, but with a limited time given, I chose to address what I believe to be the most pernicious aspect of the policy. But like you, I share your concern about the other parts of the policy as well, namely activities and use of facilities. While I'm also concerned with fairness of competition, I don't think it's the primary concern. I think the primary concern is the safety of children, especially physical safety. Allowing biological males to compete in female high school sports has led to devastating injuries to young female athletes. It's not a question of if but when, because it has already happened in public schools in this country. In addition to having moments of victory and future opportunities robbed from them, young girls are brutalized in the name of diversity, equity, and inclusion. If you haven't heard of Peyton McNabb, she is a high school volleyball player from North Carolina who took a spike to the face from a male identifying as female. She was concussed and sustained severe neck and head injuries in September of 2022. And after 7 months at the time of this article, she was still recovering and continued to suffer from her injuries. Then there's the girl that had her teeth knocked out and suffered severe facial injuries from a shot taken by a male identifying as female during a high school field hockey playoff in Massachusetts earlier this month. As she fell to the floor in pain, you can hear her blood-curdling shrieks of pain. These are real events that have happened, not ifs, but whens. I would like to read a few of Peyton McNabb's quotes from an article. Due to the North Carolina High School Athletic Association policy allowing biological males to compete against biological females, my life has forever been changed. I was unable to play the rest of my last volleyball season, and although I'm currently playing softball, I'm not able to perform as well as I know I have in the past because of the injury. I'm here for every biological female athlete behind me, my little sister, my cousins, my teammates. Allowing biological males to compete against biological females is dangerous. I may be the first to come before you with an injury, but if this doesn't pass, I won't be the last. She was referring to a proposed North Carolina legislation. My ability to compete was taken from me. Having to play against biological males is not a level playing field, and it is most definitely not safe. Quoting the same article, it states, McNabb indicated that to this day she is still recovering from her injuries and continues to face other health struggles as a result of what happened, such as impaired vision, partial paralysis on the right side of her body, constant headaches, anxiety, and depression. She added that her ability to retain and comprehend information has been impaired, forcing her to obtain accommodations at school as well. Now turning to the use of facilities. There have been clear examples of females and males sharing bathrooms leading to sexual activities on school grounds in the past. From high school with allegations of sexual assault in an all-gender bathroom in Montclair, to middle school where students were having sex in a Delsey regional bathroom involving a transgender student. It doesn't take a genius to know what some kids are going to try to get away with. We all went through puberty, experienced the effects of our bodily hormones, but not everyone exhibited the same level of self-control they should have. And sadly, students having sex on school grounds, although rare, existed before this policy ever came into place, but this policy will make it easier. So I ask, does that sound like a safe learning environment to you? Also, is it the school's responsibility to provide safe homes or safe schools? Unfortunately, there may be some Old Bridge children right now going to unsafe homes regardless of their gender identity. What are you going to do for them? I'd argue that the same existing policies put in place to protect these children should also cover the concerns of transgender children going to abusive homes. It would be great if we could ensure that every student goes to a safe home when they leave school, but the school should not pursue safety in one location to the detriment of the other, especially when one of them is your direct primary responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Board of Ed, for all you do and your time and your dedication. We appreciate it. My name is Jennifer, and I am from Marlboro. I am against the 576 policy. It is never a good idea to have special policies for a select group of people, as it divides, it causes mandatory. For the safety of the LGBTQ students, anti-bullying and anti-discriminatory policies are already in place. Some argue that we need this policy for the privacy of the LGBT students, yet the policy demands that the teachers abide by the students' wishes being referred to their specific pronouns, addressed by a name other than their birth name, and to separate IDs from their birth records. This is not about the child's privacy while in schools, but about protecting the student's gender expression from their parents. Many people supportive of this policy allowing the child's gender identity to be quiet from their parents argue that not all parents are understanding and loving. I'm sure this is true, but if there is a reason to suspect danger in the child's home, isn't a social worker sent to the home to investigate, like with other policies, regardless of the reason? I oppose 5756 for many reasons, but mostly because it serves to affirm a false ideology. Biologically, we know there are only two genders, male and female, and that cannot change. There has been a tremendous spike in gender confusion, mainly in girls. This would not be happening if it wasn't promoted by social media, far left woke philosophy, and affirmed by the schools. Let's talk about the schools' role in this. Although not publicly broadcasted, we know that the schools in New Jersey are not only teaching about sexual orientation and gender identity, they are affirming gender confusion. Laws in our state mandate LGBTQ history taught in the schools. Kindergartens are introduced to gender stereotypes. Impressionable little ones are taught there is no true connection between biological sex and gender. They are told that someone, like a doctor, may have guessed what sex they were at birth, but no one really knows their gender except the child itself. Some schools introduce books such as Genderbread Person and Gender Unicorn, I Am Jazz. The little ones are taught they may have a girl brain in a boy's body, or vice versa. The curriculum schools supplied by gender activists such as ACLU, Planned Parenthood, the Bill Gates Foundation, Psychus, etc., include information on gender expression and graphic sexual material that would never have been discussed or shown in years past, nor have any reason to be taught in the schools. We know that schools are celebrating Pride Month, International Pronouns Day, LGBTQ History Month, Transgender Awareness Week, and a Day of Silence. No wonder why gender fluidity has become such a thing that a school policy has to address it. We are teaching in our schools, we are affirming it, and we are celebrating it. How about telling children they were fearlessly and wonderfully made by God as male or female, and this should be celebrated? For the child going through puberty, why don't we give them guidance and love, have them deal with the usual hormonal changes, go through the trials of being an adolescent, and if necessary, get them help by a trusted counselor. Most kids will outgrow their fears and awkwardness about their bodies. For those children with other anxieties and phobias, let's love them and help them work through their fears. Most likely, the pain has nothing to do with gender. We know that a person's biological sex can never be changed regardless of puberty blockers, hormones, or irreversible surgeries. What can we do then? We can change our mindset. Let's put our efforts there. Let's speak the truth in love.
Hello, good evening. My name is David, and I'm a resident of Old Bridge, an immigrant from Mexico. And I believe that when we talk about issues like this...
Excuse me. Don't engage each other up in line.
Got it? When we talk about issues like this, we talk about individuals, and of course, the individual matters. But at its core, we're talking about principles. And if we remove the hatred, if we remove sometimes the unnecessary nuance and the noise, we see that we're dealing with two different principles, right? I am of the belief that parents have a right to know what their kids are doing. That's what I was taught. That's how I grew up. I believe that for every argument, there is a counter argument. And this is when I sometimes wish to talk to people who believe, right, in the transgender ideology and say, you know what? Yes, there are many parents that do not know how to handle the situation with their kids, and they abuse them, and they do things that are unspeakable, like abandoning them. That is absolutely, absolutely wrong. But on the other hand, I ask you to go on social media and check Reddit. Of course, young people know what that is, and check the D-Trans sub for you to see story upon story upon story. These are formerly trans young men and women who say, if I had known what I know now 5 years ago, 10 years ago, when I was in high school, I would have waited. I would have thought about it. I would have waited at least until my mind was made up. But now it's too late. Now I went through the bottom surgery, the top surgery, and I do not know what to do. If you read the gut-wrenching stories in that place that I am telling you about, that's, by the way, by no means a right-wing, place at all. That is specifically designed so that people who regret the transition can go and vent with like-minded people. You will see the truth. You will see what happens. It doesn't always end well, right? And something else I'd like to say to the people who advocate for the policy. We are not all Santa Claus. I consider myself to be a rational man, and the notion, the idea that a party other than myself, namely the schools, will give itself the right to teach my daughters, I have 2 of them, an ideology that is completely diametrically opposed to what I believe. I find that reprehensible. I find that reprehensible. I find that oppressive. As a minority, I find that oppressive. I have the right as a parent to teach my daughter what I believe is the right way in life. And I'm gonna fight for that. Because my children are my future. They will carry my name, and they will carry who I am through the generations. They will carry my faith, and they will give it to their children. And nobody's gonna get in the middle of that. Because those kids were given to me by God to build them and to give them principles. And that's what I want to do. Thank you very much.
Good evening. I want to thank you each for your service to this community, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. So there's 2 aspects of Policy 5756 I don't think are being considered or addressed. First, New Jersey state law requires all public schools not only teach but stress abstinence and modesty in their health curriculum. Here's the thing. Everything about 5756 undermines this fundamental core curriculum required by law. If you are affirming without question, without diagnosis, or any other criteria, as your policy states, then, or any other criteria, okay, gender choice, okay, affirming without question, without any diagnosis or any other character. Okay, so gender choices, fluidity, and identities of children, then you are by definition affirming the behaviors associated with those choices. By the way, please consider what affirm means and what the synonyms are. Do people really not understand the inevitable harm that will ensue? Is anyone considering the escalation of sexually transmitted diseases or the emotional baggage and trauma that has already been on the rise and approaching epidemic proportions? Unfortunately, in reviewing your curriculum Abstinence and modesty barely get a mention out of pages and pages of sexual expression, pregnancy mitigation, etc. I want to just highlight a couple things from the policy itself, as some other people have done. It's just the tip of the iceberg. But from the definitions and terms, you see, discuss with the student the pronouns each student has chosen. Chosen. Gender identity means a person's internal, deeply held sense of gender. Okay? Under transition, it says, develops a more affirming gender expression that feels authentic. Okay? So we have, you know, these words that have clear meaning that are the basis of this policy. Okay? We're allowing children to choose. We're basing that on their sense of gender and what feels authentic. Okay? And as regarding the parental issues, again, other people have touched on it, but it states that principal or designee is advised to work with the student to create an appropriate confidentiality plan. And I just want folks to understand what is implied and inferred with some of these statements and language in the policy, okay? And be honest, because we really need intellectual honesty here as to what the issues really are, okay? Secondly, I think 5756 needs to be looked at through the lens of New Jersey child endangerment laws, okay? Section 9, 6 through 8 and 9 states, child abuse, risk of injury to a minor, and child endangerment in New Jersey can be any type of action which causes substantial risk of injury, death, disfigurement, or which impairs a child's physical or emotional health. Okay? It's emotional health. Child endangerment can occur when a child does not receive licensed professional medical care for an injury or sickness, and includes ignoring medical advice for conditions that can be treated. So, just for the record, gender dysphoria is a well-documented and classified mental illness, and our kids are being confused about a lot more than gender, and we need to have adults in the room start speaking the truth and using discernment in what is really in the best interest of our kids. I just want to also mention that the response from the American Association of Pediatrics to the unelected Board of Education, State Board of Education, regarding the changes to Chapter 7 is that they oppose it, and they believe that it's anti-science vote that is harmful to children. Thank you very, very much.
Can you hear me? Okay. So I know some of you might think that I'm just a little kid. I don't know that much. Oh, sorry. My name is Tyler Tirado. I'm a freshman here at the Old Bridge High School. So like I said, I'm sure some of you may think that I'm a little kid. I do not know a lot of stuff, but today I'm not only speaking for myself, I'm also speaking for many of the people who are part of the LGBTQ community. The feeling of walking through the halls and wondering if something disrespectful is going to be said to me is scary. In middle school, going home crying all day was not fun. That was until I found the love and support of the Old Bridge High School that the Old Bridge High School provided. In my personal opinion, I think that I should be comfortable in my own skin, no matter if it's sports, the bathroom, or changing in locker rooms. Today, I stand behind my fellow peers who are part of the LGBTQ community, and I will continue to speak my truth and let nobody tell me otherwise. I kept it short, so thank you. Have a nice night.
Thank you. Good evening. Doris Lynn, Freehold Township. I urge the board to preserve 5756. As a parent, I support parental rights, but that's not what this is about. This is about fear and bias and prejudice. The parents who insist that they be notified of their child's pronouns are the ones who are against their child changing their pronouns. I see the fear and hatred. I see people calling transgender people mentally ill or groomers. Some even want their idea of God to be taught in schools. This hatred leads to discrimination and even anti-LGBTQ hate crimes. Regarding sexual assault and molestation, I guarantee you that almost every female in this room has been sexually harassed, molested, or even assaulted by cisgender men. For me, it's been multiple cisgender men in my life, a neighbor, a boss, and strangers on the street. I've never been harassed or assaulted by a transgender woman. Parents who say these kids are too young to know their gender have no problem with cisgender kids who know their gender. The parents who oppose the policy claim they will love their kids no matter what, and I believe them. But they will damage their kids emotionally when they tell their kids they are mentally ill or groomers if they change their gender. If your child is keeping this secret from you, it's because you've made them feel unsafe. And if 5756 is repealed, a child who may have come out to a trusted teacher might have no trusted adult. More important than this disingenuous argument about parental rights is the safety of our children. I'm not worried about transgender girls who are much more likely to be the victims of harassment than harassers. I'm worried about kids being exposed to the hatred and bigotry of people who freely and openly express their vitriol in public. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Keela Partman. I'm a teenager in Old Bridge. I've spoken here before. Before I address policy 5756, which I will get to, I just wanted to let you all know something that I think is very universal, that I think everybody here actually agrees with. To all trans people who have been harassed and bullied by other people, I'm sorry. That is hard. I truly sympathize with you, and even though we might disagree on some things, I think you deserve to have a support system, and I'm sorry if you do not have that. I feel horrible for that kid who had to live behind 7-Eleven. That's unacceptable. But it's not controversial to say bullying is wrong. I don't think anybody here thinks bullying is wrong. Now, I want to talk about the more controversial parental notification policy inside of policy 5756. So in this policy, there's a couple of presuppositions here, and I'm going to need a little bit of participation from the board if possible. I want you to picture or even draw a big circle. That represents the amount of trans kids in the school. Next, draw a smaller circle inside that circle. That circle is trans kids who haven't come out to their parents yet. Now draw a smaller circle in that past circle to represent trans kids who have abusive parents. Now, in that small circle, draw an even little dot in the circle, which represents trans kids who haven't come out to their parents, who are abusive, who abuse them for this specific reason. Does that sound a little unreasonable? Good. It's the state's job to investigate parents who are abusive, not the school's job to avoid triggering abuse. The reality is, abusive parents will abuse no matter what. If we were to keep this policy and, stop the abuse, we would also have to get rid of report cards, since according to many well-proven studies, they also correlate to child abuse. And the reality is, this is a classic example of correlation, not causation. Even if abuse rates are higher when kids age 5 to 14 are outed, that doesn't necessarily mean being outed causes the abuse. We don't make laws for the 1 or 2 people in this town who fit all of these criteria, just like we don't have laws for other extremely specific people who have extremely specific criteria, as sad as they may be. In conclusion, I do just want to reiterate, I am not against gay people. I have gay family members, and I have worked with people on the LGBTQIA spectrum. And America gives you the right to do what you want, when you want. And who am I to command you to not to do what you're legally able to do? However, I think we should all focus more on what the school is obligated to do. The school is obligated to help the parents to help their kids succeed. That's it. Full stop. They are not therapists. They are not psychologists. And again, people talk about children's rights. I've heard a decent amount. Here's this answer, actually. The kid has human rights. The parents have human rights and special rights legally awarded by court cases like Pierce versus Society of Sisters and Wisconsin v. Yoder to help these kids. In these cases, parents' rights were challenged and the Supreme Court upheld them. In upholding this, you are going against parental rights legally upheld by the courts. Now, also too, I mean, I'm assuming you guys are getting tired of hearing this, all this stuff, so I do just want to say thank you. I mean, you guys have heard for like 3 whole meetings now, and I get it must be kind of exhausting at some point, so I do want to say thanks. I mean, I hope your favorite football team wins in Thanksgiving, and you don't have as bad a food coma as you normally do. So, yeah.
Hi, I'm Sean Bensley, a retired elementary counselor here in Oldbridge. I'm a resident of Hillsborough. I didn't prepare anything tonight. I just want to dispel some of the things that I heard that I believe were incorrect. Maybe Mr. Parton can speak to this specifically, but I believe that whether or not you choose to keep 5756 or rescind it, the law against discrimination in New Jersey protects transgender students when it comes to bathrooms and participation in sports. So when we talk about it here at this meeting, it's really not an issue for the board, it's an issue for the state, and I suggest that those who disagree with that go to the state. A lot of what I heard tonight, and I unfortunately didn't go to the second meeting last week, but I'm hearing a lot of people here who are against the policy, and I'm sure you love your children and are very, active and concerned residents of Old Bridge, but these are hypothetical situations that you're coming up. I don't hear anyone saying this, my parental rights were taken away, or this happened to me. Whereas I've heard a lot of very brave students and parents and other members of the LGBTQ community talk about their own personal experiences. And at the policy meeting last week, I watched people shake as they spoke. And when somebody talks to you about their own experience, I think it's really important to listen. A lot of the things that I've heard tonight, again, kind of make me think or wonder if people are listening. 5756 is not about sexual activity. It's about gender identity, and those are 2 separate things. Nothing in the policy is encouraging or discouraging abstinence. It's just saying that your gender identity, who you are as a person, is protected. When I hear people talk about policies for a certain group of students or a small minority of students is not okay, I would kind of disagree with that, because if a student has special needs in learning, that's a special group. They get special things, and they should, because they can't help that, and they need special policies. Just like someone who is transgender or gay or lesbian or bisexual is not a choice. It's something of who a person is. So, when you say they don't deserve special needs, I really disagree with that. Also, the talk about meds or mutilation or operations, none of that is happening in school. None of it. It's just about having kids have the right to be themselves and to feel comfortable. And the man who spoke last week and attacked the student, if he didn't come here and say that in public, we wouldn't know that that's how he thought. So I was a counselor and worked with kids for 35 years, and believe me, you cannot tell who is likely to or who will be abusive to a student, to a child. And the fact that that man felt comfortable doing it in public on camera is really concerning to me. And it kind of proves that kids need protection. Some kids, not all kids, but the ones who do, really need us to be there for them. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'm Gerald Maglio from the Dolores Turco Foundation. We protect children from abuse and neglect. We believe everyone's created in the image and likeness of God and deserving of love. We do not discriminate for any reason under any circumstances. Today I'd like to talk to you a little bit about clarify some things that came up at the last meeting. Firstly, according to the Hanover Board of Education, this policy is wholly one-sided. Firstly, thank you for your service. I forgot to say that. I really appreciate your listening to us and your compassion and concern for children, families, and the community. But the policy is wholly one-sided. It fails to provide a mechanism to address and this is from an attorney from the Hanover Board of Education. It fails to provide a mechanism to address and manage conflicting concerns of all students, parents, administrators, or staff, and the district at whole. The Board of Education in Hanover also recognized the policy is ambiguous, it is ripe for legal challenge, it blatantly exposes the district to liability for potentially withholding or concealing information from parents without a legitimate safety concern for doing so. They also found, according to the law, minor children do not have a right of privacy to the exclusion of their legally fit parents under the LAD or otherwise, and therefore do not have the right to direct administrators and staff to purposefully withhold or actively conceal information from their parents. I talked last week about the law. Parental rights have been upheld by the federal courts throughout the country. I'd like to point out something that came up last week about the parents being not, the question about parents being told or not told. The policy specifically states there's no affirmative duty for any school district personnel to notify the parents, the students' parents, of the gender identity. It also says that school personnel may not disclose information that may reveal a student's transgender status, except as allowed by law. And contrary to the board's understanding of encouraging supportive parent-child relationships, the policy actually promotes adversity and potential litigation, because in instances where the parent and guardian and the child disagree with the use of pronouns, the school district is advised to, quote, consult their board attorney regarding the minor's civil rights and protections under the NJ LAD. In addition, they are encouraged to seek family counseling and support service outside the school district, and the advocacy groups include the New Jersey Department of Children and Families, and refer parents to Child Abuse, Neglect, and Missing Children webpage. These types of recommendations alienate parents from their children. According to the policy, you heard about there's no threshold, but one of the things I wanted to point out is that the policy requires that schools come up with a variety of professionals, seek a variety of professionals, including counselors and school psychologists, to provide emotional supports for these students who demonstrate a need. And I point this out in fact that the current protocol for children questioning their gender is to affirm the child's gender identity, and then the professionals, unfortunately, conduct a brief, inadequate evaluation of the patients that serve only to screen for obvious mental illness. They fail to explore any underlying mental issues or social factors that can contribute to the child's gender dysphoria. And in fact, a number of the gender dysphoria children are on the autism spectrum. The risky gender affirmation model consists of puberty-blocking drugs, followed by cross-sex hormones, and sex reassignment surgeries as the only or best option for treating these children. The drugs are experimental. Lupron is one, and that's used to chemically castrate offenders, sex offenders. They also cause, as you heard, irreversible harm and sterility. These sex reassignment surgeries consist of hysterectomies for children and removal of the breasts and removal of penises for boys, as well as refashioning the genital tissues. These surgeries require 12 to 18 months for recovery and can produce serious complications. So under the current policy, schools can work with professionals on a confidential basis without the knowledge or consent of parents to transition minors without meeting threshold diagnosis or even appropriate mental health screening. Transitioning children will be subjected to harmful medical interventions that could sterilize them for life. Even if one child is subjected to these standard practices without the knowledge or consent of parents, the district is exposing itself to potential litigation with monumental consequences.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening to the board. My name is Jeet Chakraborty. I'm a resident of Old Bridge, graduate class of 2014. I want to open up by reading a poem, and some of the board members on this panel might recognize this poem, especially if you're a history buff. First, they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. There's been a lot of talk tonight about ending wokeness, but I'd like to ask someone here to define what that means. Does wokeness mean disagreeing with anyone who thinks or believes different from you, or does it mean teaching people to be kind and accepting of others? Here's the thing. I read that poem first in Mr. LeNegro's 8th grade social studies class. And what that taught me is that this is how it starts. If one group of people has their rights taken away, that leads the slippery slope to other groups and other rights being taken away. And we've seen this playbook play out in other parts of the country. In Utah and Texas, they've implemented book bans trying to so quote unquote protect children from pornography, when really the books they're trying to ban are just books, children's books really, that normalize LGBT people. In Florida, you have a revised curriculum where they're trying to quote unquote highlight the benefits of slavery, whatever that's supposed to mean. If you give in to this, you'll have to be giving in to every other demand that comes their way. You'll have to give in to the book bans that will inevitably follow. You'll have to give in to curriculum cuts. Little by little, the district will die, death by 1,000 cuts style, till eventually a case could be made to replace our system itself with a school voucher program. Now, as we saw today, this system breeds excellence. We saw a 16-year-old wrote a book, and I'm a novelist myself, I can speak from experience. Writing a book is a harrowing process. And we even have advanced facilities like auto repair shop, like so many other public school systems don't have 1/10 of the resources we have in this school. And that could all potentially slide down the tubes if we start giving in now. The sad truth is, if you give a fascist an inch, they will take a mile. And before we know it, this amazing school system that produces top-tier talent could be gone before our very eyes. I know all of you here, regardless of whatever your opinions are about Policy 5756, love this school district, and I know you'd never want anything to come bring it to harm. But if you buckle here, you'll be buckling again and again and again. And I know that because I studied history at this school, and I had damn good history teachers.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Terry Esposito. I'm a Howell resident. I have 2 boys that live here in Old Bridge and a grandson who may be attending the Old Bridge school system. So I have a marked interest in everything that happens around here. I'd like to start with a clarification of a statement that I made that I was called out on, which is fine. It's disheartening, though, that both times I gave this information, it was misinterpreted. I read from the 45 Goals of Communism, which I believe originated from the American Communist Party back in 1919, and it was exposed in a book called The Naked Communist in 1961. These goals, these 45 goals, are frightening and sobering, and when you read them, and I hope everybody reads them, you'll recognize that many, if not all of these, have been accomplished. These are the 2 that I focused on. Number 26, present homosexuality, degeneracy, and promiscuity as normal, natural, and healthy. And number 41, emphasize the need to raise children away from the negative influence of parents. Attribute prejudices, mental blocks, and retarding of children to suppressive influence of parents. So, a wonderfully passionate faculty member, who I'm sure is an awesome teacher, assured everyone that teachers are not groomers, we are not indoctrinators, we're not communists. Perhaps I missed a comment, but I didn't hear those accusations. No one is here to make those accusations. The need here is for transparency, accountability, and a requirement for faculty to inform parents when a child questions their identity. Policy 5756 does not ensure this. I'm going to read you a definition from the NIH.gov website on gender dysphoria, previously gender identity disorder. According to the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, it is defined as a marked incongruence between their experienced or expressed gender that they were assigned at birth. So, the LGBTQ special interest groups are the most celebrated groups in America now. It's promoted in the music industry, Hollywood, marketing industries, and our government. There's an explosive increase of gender dysphoria among children, and you have to ask why. Why are children's psyches targeted? Why is gender dysphoria normalized in children's shows, wide range of popular children's shows on Cartoon Network, Disney, Nickelodeon, and PBS? Why is it consistently and prominently displayed in the children's sections of public libraries? Why do so many drag queens crave the attention and affirmation from children? Why are they being sexualized? Is it surprising that the children would be attracted to the bright colors and cartoonish outfits, clouds, rainbows, and unicorns? Why are the LGBTQ+ flags so brightly colored, where the flag for those who aren't are boring, dull shades of gray? What child wouldn't be pulled in to at least present an interest? We're talking about children 5 to 14 years old. And when that interest is presented, the parent needs to know. They need to know the source of influence. Maybe it's children's mass media, or maybe it's an unknown predator stalking them online, or maybe it's a closet pedophile at a friend's house, or an athletic coach, or a private instructor, et cetera, et cetera. My sister, I had mentioned, was one of the original cyber angels, and she started developing that potential for tracking and pulling in these pedophiles online. And she would get that information once they admitted what their intentions were to the FBI or the police forces, and they would track these pedophiles and arrest them. She would, if she was here, enlighten us as to the tactics that these pedophiles use to deceive and lure in children. They're enough to lure in adults, and they pretend to be children. So when children show a propensity for gender dysphoria, the parent needs to know in order to be able to find out where it's coming from, if it's coming from themselves or if it's coming from an outside influence where their child may be in danger. So I would ask that the board rescind 5756 and make it a requirement for the parent to be informed when the children express that.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Elena Francisco. I am a parent and a resident. First, I just want to say thank you to these two ladies right here who let me jump in front of them because my daughter's birthday is tomorrow and she's asking for her mama to come home. So I just wanted to speak a few words. I had no intention of speaking tonight whatsoever. As I listen this evening to others speak, I truly listen, and I wanted to speak in response to some of the things that were said. First, please know that in regards to the gentleman that spoke in such poor taste last week, what he said was unacceptable. Please know that he does not represent all of those who oppose this policy. The conversation around this policy should never be directed at any child, and I made sure that last week I turned around to let that child know that she is beautiful and deserves all the best this world has to offer. And sorry, I would say her name or her mom's name, but I don't know them. And I know that I'm not supposed to address them, so I won't. But I just wanted them to know that one opinion on a particular side of anything doesn't represent everybody. Second, please do not think that, I'll speak for myself, but I know it's true for many others, that I am afraid of anybody in the LGBTQ community. I have zero fear of anyone based on their gender identity or sexual orientation or anything else for that matter. I love all people and treat them with respect and kindness no matter what, and I teach my children to do the same. Third, these awful stories we've heard tonight are heart-wrenching. There's no debating that. But I would like to also mention that so many parents are accepting and loving. How many parents have opened their minds and hearts to how their child would like to live their lives? How many families have we brought together as a school district? How many parents feel supported when they know they have the school community behind them? We don't have those numbers. I wish that we did. There's good and bad in everything, but this blanket policy does not protect all children, and that is our job, to protect all children. I want nothing more than to revise this policy. I want nothing more than to come to a middle ground. That's our job. That's what we're here to do. And it's what we want to teach all of our students in Old Bridge to do, to listen to one another, to come to a compromise, to find a middle ground. But unfortunately, as I stated last week, the state has stripped us of that right. That is not what's best for all students. Therefore, we must rescind this policy. It's not the middle ground. I wish that it was. So thank you for listening, and please excuse me for sneaking out, but I'm going to give a hug to my daughter who is turning 10 tomorrow. So thank you for listening.
Another short person approaching here. Let me know if you can understand me. I have a kind of a cold situation, so I apologize ahead of time. So, good evening. My name is Alexis. I'm a resident of Old Bridge. I have 2 children here. And I wanted to speak tonight. I thought I would get emotional here, and I am. And I'm sorry. It's hard hearing the discussion. I'm a parent of a transgender child in this community. And I want to speak in support, because I think it's very important that you hear the experiences of people who have actual experience with this policy. There's getting too animated here. There's a lot of, discussion from all over the place, which I know people are very passionate about, but this is a school board meeting, and I stood up today because I think I need you to hear me and to hear the students who have experienced this policy and know what it's about. It's a complicated process when a child, comes out with their identity. It's complicated for the child, it's complicated for the parent. But the one thing I knew is that my child was safe and accepted in an Old Bridge school that they attend. I never had as much as I can be sure of that. I didn't really have concerns. The staff were always accepting and affirming of my child. There was communication. No one ever told my child to keep a secret. I spoke with staff members about what was happening. I felt completely comfortable asking questions. I never felt I couldn't. To clarify, no one ever spoke to my child about medical intervention. No one ever spoke to my child about, who their identity. My child would be who they are if this policy was in place or not. No one ever, God, there's so many things are going through my mind right now. But it's really important to keep this policy in place because I knew, my child had told me. Thankfully, I was grateful that I was already aware of what was going on when the school reached out to me. But unfortunately, that's not the case for every child. And I'm not going to reiterate the things you've heard. I just want to tell you my personal experiences. My child had that safe place. I know last week there was an incoming board member who, talking about this policy and the legal repercussions, talked about, just repeal it. There'll be no consequences. I think that's kind of easy to say on that end of it, but when you're a student and in a family member, there's a lot of repercussions that are there that are really complicated, extensive repercussions. And I'm asking you for really to keep it in place is incredibly important. I question the good faith of this argument. This policy has been there for years. It was signed into, we all know this, it was signed into policy by Chris Christie. It's been there and the complaints are coming now, and I don't know why. But, you know, again, my child had a safe place to go to. I'm a working parent. You all spend much more time with my child than I do, unfortunately, and I am grateful that there was a firming place for them, and I really appreciate you hearing me out. And I'm not great at public speaking. I would be more than happy to talk with any of you all individually, one-on-one. If you have questions, anything, please reach out, find me. I'd be happy to talk to you about that. So I appreciate the time, and thank you.
Hi. Hi, my name is Roxana. I'm an Old Bridge resident. I'm mom of 2 young boys in elementary school. So I just want to thank all the parents and everyone who has spoken in support of the policy. I am one of those, I'm a firm believer that if you have not experienced something in your life, you cannot fully understand what it is and what's going on. For me, when I first heard about the policy, I saw that it was in effect since 2018, 2017, and I wondered what is the outrage now over this? I'm sure this policy has protected many, many students and helped families who have needed to have that guidance. What I'm hearing a lot about in terms of resistance to this policy is fear. Underlining all of that is fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of what might happen, fear of what if. Speaking about gay and transgender people is not going to turn your child gay or transgender. It's just about accepting the fact that they exist in this world, and they have existed for beginning of time. Why can't we have room for that? Why do we have to exclude it? Why does it have to be one against the other? The purpose of this policy is to protect transgender students from being outed without their consent. That is basically the core of it when I read the policy. For those who are outed without their consent, the consequences could be bullying by their peers, classmates, colleagues, not colleagues, but yeah. Even harassment from their parents, you know, denial of their existence, basically. Students see schools as places of support. You know, that's the place they spend most of their time when they're not at home. So, you know, I put myself in someone's shoes, a young person's shoes, who might be experiencing, you know, the fact that they might be gay or transgender, LGBTQ. I can only imagine how hard that must be. Why would you do that on purpose? It's not a mental illness. You know, why would you purposely choose a life like that that you know is going to encounter so much hate and resistance? So to sum up, to be really short, here's a statistic. Fewer than 40% of LGBTQ youth have supportive homes. Fewer than 40%. Think about that tonight. And also, just want to leave you with one final point. Reflect on the messaging that you give your kids at home. When you do talk to them about, obviously, when you feel it's appropriate for their age, you know, it's always, parents have that choice. Parents have those rights. It starts at home. Think about the message you give them. Do you talk about the existence of gay, transgender people? Why not? Obviously, when that time comes and you feel it's appropriate for your children, but keep that communication open. They exist. Thank you very much.
Hello, Matt Jenkins, Colts Neck, New Jersey. So in the 1950s, there was an explosion of left-handed children. Not because it was being taught in school, certainly wasn't on social media. It's because the kids already existed and were no longer being forced to be right-handed. Social media is not teaching these kids to be trans or fluid or whatever it is they want to go by. They already existed. It's just we're listening now. We're paying attention now. When this policy was first implemented, I thought it was like 2019, I'm not sure. Nobody cared. Why? Because it doesn't really affect anybody. It affects 1, 2 kids, maybe. Some school districts, it affects no one at all. So, as the first woman who came up here so eloquently put it, it's not about trying to, I don't want to change people's minds. You feel the way that you feel, but I want you to be coming at it with the right facts. In the lead up to the election, I saw 2 different commercials at least a dozen times that was just a blatant lie. And the woman went on there, she says, I'm a mother, and if my son goes to school and tells the teacher that he wants to be a girl, it's against the law for the teacher to call me. That is a flat out lie. What is the purpose of the organization that made that commercial? If they have to lie to get their point across, what is their actual point? So this parental rights idea, it's nothing new. It's been thrown around for decades. Sorry, I won't look over there. It's been thrown around for decades. No one is infringing on any parent's rights. Parents' transparency has never been clearer than it is right now. Everything's online. You can call your teachers, emails, it's on the website. You can know every single thing going on with your kid. Almost all the time, the parent knows already. So this goes down to the 1 or 2 families where a teacher hears something or a student feels comfortable enough to talk to a teacher, they're going to say, do your parents know? It's like the first thing they ask. And if that kid looks at you and says, I am petrified of my parents. My father will beat me. They will throw me out of the house. We're going to have the government force the teacher to call the kid's parents anyway? To me, that's just unacceptable. Yesterday was Trans Remembrance Day. And there's a service that I go to every year, and while the people are up talking, there is a slideshow that goes in the back, and it's all the names of those that have left us. There was a name, there was a country, and there was the means of their passing. I can't repeat them here. I see, actually most of the young people I think left. They're truly horrific. And some of them were teenagers. And some of the most heartbreaking ones were the ones with no names. They have a body and no name. This was a human being, a person. And they've left us without even leaving a name behind. I mean, it was as tragic as some of those others were that we knew what was going on. It was heartbreaking to hear the name, no name, no name, no name, over and over again of a human being that lived, and they don't even leave a name behind. This policy is going to affect almost no one. I don't understand why it needs to be rescinded. It is here to protect that one child who looks at you and begs you not to call their father because their father's going to beat them. Their father or mother is going to throw them out of the house. I have a lot of friends through the whole spectrum of the LGBTQ community. The ones that I've met luckily have made it, but I've met many who have been thrown out as teenagers. Could you imagine what it's like talking to your father, your mother, you're 14, 16 years old, and you just say it, get out. No further contact with your family. Now, these kids were lucky. They had a grandparent bring them in, they had a friend bring them in, and they made it. But so many don't make it. So please, make sure you have the right facts before you make your decision. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Deanna Duran, and I'm an Old Bridge resident. I have a 5-year-old son that goes to Carpenter. I believe that this policy sets a dangerous precedent for our well-being for our families. As a child, I was violated by my 5th grade teacher at Carpenter, who happened to be a female. She told me I needed to keep this a secret and that she was just helping me since my mother had just died. There wasn't a specific policy that could have protected me from that. Keeping a secret from a parent is wrong regardless of what it is. I happen to be a Christian. I also happen to love my LGBTQ family members and friends equal to the way I love my Muslim friends. and everybody else. Just because we have certain differences of living or thinking does not mean we cannot live happily together. The majority of us that do not approve of this policy do not have a problem with the LGBT group or ideology. We have a problem with the school system shaping our children's views a certain way and not keeping us informed on everything going on with our children. Thank you.
I too empathize with your tough decisions in these things. I'm Lloyd Pulley from Freehold. I pastor here in Old Bridge. And listen, we teach people, look, people are made in the image of God. Whatever they choose to be, what they want to be, you love them, you know. And any hatred, any marginalizing and, you know, mistreatment is just patently wrong. I think the real issue, you know, is not so much, I mean, look, when people get into the high school age, you know, that is a little bit of a challenging time when they're kind of asserting themselves against their parents. My concern is more with the elementary age. You know, these gender, you know, discussions to put kids in that position, they're thinking of things before their brain is developed. Is it a small wonder why, you know, gender dysphoria has increased 5,000% in the last 10, 15 years? I might be wrong on that statistic. I know it's not far off. It's gone way too far because I believe that, you know, you're having this thing happen that I would want to know how many kids that are not affirmed, you know, would just develop after they get through puberty. Would they'd find that there's no dysphoria between their identity, their sex, and their gender. You know, they would discover that, you know, they outgrow that. But how many, and are you guys aware of the studies that are done with kids that are affirmed before puberty? That's a lot higher of a percentage that they'll be gender dysphoria. And if the statistics are true, that gender dysphoria is something that, you know, you're going to see 80%, you know, suicide ideation. You're going to see 40% perhaps attempt at one point to take their life. Why would you affirm kids before puberty? Why would you not let parents know before puberty, hey, your kids are going through this, you know, you should have a discussion? I mean, it's crazy to think of this because, listen, even in just general thought, you know, we don't know what certain people have, like this young lady, you know, had, you know, an abusive situation. That doesn't mean teachers are bad, doesn't mean administrators are bad. I mean, this school is an amazing school. We have a number of people in this community that go to our church that love the school. I was part of helping the wrestling ministry 30 years ago plus, you know, and Mr. Scott was the, you know, coach at that point. I love, you know, I know that teachers I have a great appreciation for teachers. My concern about a policy, though, that I believe endangers young people. It does, because they're confused at a young age, giving all these choices. Just a teacher asking a simple question like, you know, are you sure you're a little girl or a little boy? Not saying anybody in this community is. I love this community. I don't think that's happening here. But the fact is, here's the thing. We're taught if there's blood, you got to assume it could be contagious, could have some disease in it. So you don't touch it, put gloves on. We assume that people are thieves. You know, you do that with banks. I mean, banks, you want banks to not trust anybody, so you have two people counting the money, two people handling it, two people taking care of it. We also have a policy in our church, 2-adult rule. We just assume anyone could be a predator. So you keep that protection simply because human nature being what it is, there could be some bad actors. Again, most people here, you guys are awesome. I don't see an issue. But I would be concerned about those few bad actors. If you have a policy that doesn't bring parents into the equation at a younger age, I don't think that's reasonable. I think that's more endangering children. But in the end, we need to treat each other with respect. I may disagree with a lot of people that spoke up here and not agree with their philosophy or even see how they're taking the points they're making and, you know, they're looking at it from that side and I'm looking at it from my side and, you know, words like hate are thrown out or you can't hate. You know, I'm not a hater. I disagree, and that's the good thing about relationships. You can have disagreements. I have a number of relationships with people that I totally disagree with, and I can appreciate them, and I see them as made in God's image, and I'll respect them as individuals worthy of my respect. And I think we should do the same in this. But this is an issue where children, parents and children, that bond, I think toying with that in light of this is not a good idea. Thank you.
Hello. James Schlachter, Old Bridge resident, 20 years, teacher for 18 years. I sincerely hope that some of the members of this board have been swayed by the passionate arguments of the people who spoke in favor of 5756. In the event that you weren't, I would just like to take the next couple of minutes to appeal to your sense of reason and fiscal conservativeness. So there are some facts, I think, that are not in dispute. The rights of the trans community, including students, are protected by New Jersey state law. 5756 is not that law. 5756 is a piece of paper that's been created to help us understand the law. Kind of like our user's manual to our car is a piece of paper designed to help us understand how the car works, but it's not the car. You can take that user's manual and make it say whatever you want. It's not going to change the car that you're driving. You can take 5756 and make it say whatever you want. You still have to comply with New Jersey state law. And if you create a replacement that says we're going to prevent trans kids from using certain bathrooms or from participating in certain sports, or we're going to compel teachers to report to the parents when their students aren't complying with cisgender norms, then two things are going to happen. And we know these two things are going to happen because they have happened to literally every municipality who's done it so far. The first thing is you're going to be sued, and you're going to start racking up legal fees. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, I don't know. We have no idea how long this lawsuit is going to go on for. It already exists. We will be joining it. And the second thing that's going to happen, I don't think this has gotten quite enough attention, and again, it's happened every single time. The second thing that's happened is your new policy is going to be enjoined. And that injunction is going to last for the duration of the lawsuit. And that means you will never have an opportunity to actually implement the things that the people who spoke against 5756 want, because right now they are breaking the law. You are going to have to wait until the lawsuit plays out. You will have no choice. You are going to be forced by law to wait. The only reasonable question in front of you is, are we going to wait for free, figure out what happens with the lawsuit, and then come back and revisit this when it's actually a real thing and not a fantasy? Or are we going to wait and pay lawyers tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars while we wait anyway? And I don't want you to take my word for it. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an expert. But you're sitting on the stage with one. And I've been listening to him for weeks. And some of the people who spoke here today have been listening. That is the reality before you. Do we wait for free, or do we pay taxpayer money for years to lawyers and wait anyway? I propose that we wait for free and then figure out what we're going to do afterwards. Thank you.
How are you guys? Just wanted to say thank you for being here. Some of you may or may, some of you may or I don't want to. Oh, Ron Simone, and I live in Old Bridge. I don't want to get sick with people, but sorry. Some of you guys may like what I say. Some of you may not like what I say. I don't know why it's making that noise, but it's, if anybody has common sense, and I always say common sense isn't that common, it's very easy to see that there's a problem with parenting, and there's a problem with the rules that, I can't even, why is this doing this? Somebody help me. Am I too tall? Good? And there's obviously a problem common sense-wise with the policies. Now, policies can be changed and they can be negotiated to work for everybody, which they're supposed to be. Now, the sad news about what you guys might not like is you're not Old Bridge and you guys are not Old Bridge. Now, what I mean by that is Old Bridge has how many thousands of people in here? You guys are not the majority, and I hate to say that, I'm not saying that rude. I'm saying this. As you can see, somebody cut the line because they feel like everybody feels that their opinion of something is better than somebody else's or is higher than somebody else's, when really it's the fact of the only thing here is the kids are what's important. As a member of the Board of Education, your opinion doesn't matter. As a parent, and I'm not looking that way, your parents don't matter. Your opinions don't matter. Parents need to police their kids better and develop that relationship. Now, I'm a 43-year-old man and I have no kids. The reason I don't have any kids is because I don't want the responsibility. And I'm scared to have a kid that's gonna get kidnapped or everything else that you see all over social media. Now, parents, you have to understand these people are not responsible for stuff that happened in the 50s. They're not responsible for social media. They're not in charge of social media. So coming up here with poems, coming up here with a documentation from something that's...
Could you address the board and not...
Yes, yeah, I'm just looking over there. Coming up here...
No, I mean, like, don't talk about what other people have done, like, just try to focus on us.
Oh, well, no,
Sorry.
but that's my point. Like, I've been sitting here and I wanted everybody to go first so I could actually listen to what's going on. There's nothing here that's being negotiated. I hear a bunch of opinions. I hear a bunch of people coming up and stating facts from a long time ago, and the worst case scenarios to happen. What about all the progress we've made as a community? And you need Old Bridge, if we're gonna use statistics, if we're gonna use facts, it has to be from the whole majority of everybody. Just the way as if majority wins for any type of vote, okay? Now there's how many people in this school, how many kids go to this school? Thousands? 8,000, and there's 20 parents in the room, okay? So now think about this again. Where's everybody when there's other policies being in place? People only go to things that pertain to them and what they're passionate about, okay? They're not here acting as Old Bridge when there's other issues going on in Old Bridge. They're here only when it's something that pertains to them or something that when they want to be heard. Somebody thinks, I'm going to cut the line because I got to go fast because I got shit to do. Guess what? I have stuff to do. I have stuff to do also, but I'm here. You guys all have stuff to do, but you're here, okay? Everybody puts their opinion first when in turn there has to be something where policies can change and be put into work for everybody. Maybe policies and rules are made to keep everybody together or are supposed to be in place for the best case for the policy, okay? Now, sometimes opinions of people, sometimes the people that make the policies come out in those policies. Now, I want to hear when I come to these meetings what we're doing to negotiate that policy so it works for the kids. Not about your feelings, not about the parents' opinions, but we're also Old Bridge. We're not any other state. We're not, whatever happens in another state, it doesn't have any effect on Old Bridge. We have our own, people are talking about change. They want change in the town. They want we can make a start to where the change comes from. That just because you're receiving money from the state, you don't always have to listen to what the state says. We have our own policies in town that can be in place. And the other thing, what I'm saying is you have a problem with the accountability of people, putting the accountability for a teacher. A teacher is there to teach somebody. A teacher is there just to teach. They don't want to have to be a counselor. They don't want to have to hear about the sexuality of your kid. Now, there's bad people in every job, in every school, in every system. There is.
Thank you, sorry.
Done?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. Yep.
Hi, I'm so sorry. It's been a long night. My name is Jill DeCaro. I am a resident of Old Bridge for 25 years. I am the current town council member, and I've also I'm a former Board of Ed member. And again, I'm sorry, these poor kids already left already. It's been a long night. So I just want to say, I was one of those parents that wanted to know everything about my kids. I wanted to literally be a fly on the wall in all my children's classes. So I understand parental rights. Trust me, I wanted to know everything about everything my kids were doing. So that's why I jumped in when my oldest was in kindergarten as a class parent, being involved in all the PTAs, to the point where when I was PTA president of Carl Sandburg and I was walking to the PTA closet, my then 8th grader, who's now 28, my then 8th grader who was walking to the bathroom saw me. Now my children and I are very close, but he saw me and he walked the other way. That night he said, "Mom, you're like a creepy stalker." So just, you know, just to give you an example of me and how involved I have been always in my children's life, and still am. So that being said, I have a few questions. Number one, we are only talking about gender identity, correct? I'll say all my questions. Number two, are teachers giving students gender-affirming medications without parental consent? Number three, are teachers engaging in helping the transgender student in their gender transformation, with or without parental consent? Number four, do the teachers have any influence, truly any influence, over the gender identity of any student? Number five, are we, because this was brought up tonight about sports, are we making sure that there is the utmost supervision and safety for all students during sports and other athletic activities? Number six, this was also something that was brought up tonight. Do we have policies protecting all students from abusive homes? And also, this policy has been in effect with no issue, for 6 years. So for people that say this is going to have catastrophic effects, there have been none in 6 years. So my last question is, over the past 6 years, how many times has it been applied? And lastly, to clarify something that was said tonight, being in the LGBTQ community is not an ideology. It is simply who they are. And as a Board of Education, it is your job to protect them. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I think that's my button. Hello, I'm Lux Antuno. I'm an agender student at the 9th grade center. I would like to bring forward, if we remove this policy, I know at least 7 students who are in fear. Not of their parents, they're in fear of their parents finding out and getting in trouble, or they're in fear of just not, or they're in fear of having to leave their homes. I know a ton of students who are out to their parents, but I also know a ton of students who are stuck in the state of being out at school, but cannot be out at home safely or comfortably. By removing this policy, you're taking away that comfort that the students sit on. The students who are using this policy know about it, but I talk to other students who have no idea this exists because they don't need it. The students who are transgender or agender or gender fluid, they educate themselves on this matter. So for them to go to school and say teachers are aiding them in this, I've gone to school for years because I'm in it, obviously, by law, and never have I heard this issue talked about in school until I brought it up with my friends, because we had to go out and educate ourselves, which is where the gender dysphoria is coming up, because the internet is allowing more resources to people to learn about what is possible and what was I wouldn't say denied, but wasn't available before. So by that increase of internet, more people are learning of what the words and vocabulary are, and they're able to identify themselves better. But removing this policy that allows them to share what they've learned and acknowledge it, it would put more people in fear and danger than it would good, because it's not hurting anyone to have it there. Thank you.
Last call. Okay, closing hearing of the residents. Mr. Cedino, would you like to answer those questions?
I'll do the best that I can. The question about is this about gender identity? I think this is, from the policy standpoint, this is about transgender identity. Well, I find it interesting, and I ask a lot of questions of people, and because I try to understand it myself, and even as a superintendent, I'm still a student of the law about education, and even trying to find out where the public is coming from on things. Is it just about transgender kids, or is it about all gender identity? Because no one's saying if my child comes to a teacher and says, "I think I might be gay," that the teacher has to run to a phone and call the house and say, "I think your kid just told me that he might be gay." And no one, I think, would expect that I know of. You know, I've been in education 26 years, and I've never had a teacher say, "Hey, listen, a kid just told me I'm gay. I have to call the house." What happens usually is that the student and the teacher asks the questions like, how, you know, do your parents know? Do you have a comfortable relationship with? Can I help you put the words together that might make you feel safe to have those conversations? And I said that's what happens in this district with our transgender students, and it was affirmed by a parent in the audience that this teacher actually called her with the support of the student to be that bridge. And that's what I think all of our fine teachers here would do in that situation. But is it just around that gender? If a student says to health teacher, nurse, that I became sexually active over the weekend, is the school's responsibility to call the parent within 24 hours and say, "Listen, your child became sexually active." And has anybody here had that phone call? I mean, has any parent ever received, I mean, parents of older kids, or, you know, any parent who was a kid at one time, did the school ever call and say, you know, your child lost her virginity this weekend, just thought you should know? But, so it seems to me that it's just about this issue. It's just about transgender kids. And then I think, is it only because of the law stating that we have to identify that student in the record? Because we don't put in the record for gay students or sexually active students that, hey, active, could have put in there, and we don't put in there that, you know, Mary's gay. We just continue to love and support them. So it seems like it just comes down to this identification piece that everyone feels teachers have to run to you and tell you because it's a secret if you don't. And our teachers aren't doing that. They're working to become that bridge of information, but it's around basically, I think, because the law says we can change the record. And I have my questions about that as a superintendent. I don't like changing people's student records, but like as I affirmed before, but if a parent calls and says, you know, what's my child's name in the records, we can't lie to you either. We can't say it says one thing and it's another. So those are just questions that I have about it as we think about it, as the board thinks about it. We don't have this, and any other area of sexuality or gender identification, we don't have this expectation from the public that we can have to run to tell parents. You know, I grew up I'm sorry this is a long answer to your question, but I spent most of my life in parochial schools up through high school. And, you know, there was the relationship with the clergy. You went to that confession, you could tell them anything. You could tell them you murdered somebody. And they couldn't tell your parents. They couldn't tell the police. They can't tell anyone. So, are they violating the parental rights? So I know I had a conversation with my clergy about things that I wasn't sure about, but Father Tom never called my parents. So, just questions that I have about that. So, the answer to that is that, and sorry, Father Tom, we had a good relationship. The gender identity, I think, is the area where it's discussing, but sometimes I feel it gets lost in there. No, we do not provide any gender-affirming medication, and we don't hand them out. We do not drive or take kids to gender-affirming surgery. We don't tell them that, hey, this is the surgery you should be having. This is a doctor that we've used in the past. None of that takes place. There was a question about gender influence. I'm not sure. Mr. Carroll, do you want to clarify that for me? I didn't. My handwriting is not as good as it used to be. Just what did you mean by gender influence?
Just to ask, are teachers influencing students to be certain genders?
I mean, I don't. Again, if I think that happened, if it factually was happening, I would have a lot more complaints in my office. I've been superintendent 11 years. I've never had that complaint that anyone's ever called to say my teacher tried to steer my child's gender in another direction. To the point there was someone from Marlboro that said that this kindergarten book is being read. That may happen in Marlboro. It's not happening here. We don't have a book about you may not be a boy or a girl. Utmost safety in sports. You know, a lot of things about the safety in sports, you know, even if we rescinded this policy, NJSIA, which is the overall arching rule decider, and again with the NJ LAD, would still overstep that and say that the students could participate in the sport in which they identify. So it comes out of the board's hands and decisions on that. Yes, all children are protected from abuse, and I think to the point where we have policies to protect that, and that's something I deal with on a, sadly, at least on a weekly basis, sometimes twice a week, where one of our staff members, by law, has to call DCP&P because of a concern with child neglect or abuse. Happened today. And that doesn't separate between gender identity. It's all students. We look to protect them. And I said this last week when we talked about it, that it's the same thing we would do in this situation, and what I know our teachers doing. Someone said that 97% of the students, that's a really, are not. That would imply that 3% of the students in this district are transgender. And while we don't have record of it, that would mean that a whole elementary school of transgender students exist in that school. That's a really high number, because that would be, 210 students of being transgender. I think it's probably from my conversations with counselors in the district, it's probably a third of a percentage point we're talking about students that are impacted by this policy. And I have no record of how many times it's been applied. I can tell you how many times it hasn't. I can tell you how many times a parent has come to me and said they were upset that they found out their child was transgender and we knew first and didn't tell them, and that's been zero. It's never happened. Hope that answers all your questions.
Thank you. Any old business from the board?
I'd like to say something, Sal. So I wanted to address a request that was posed to board members last week, asking us to denounce certain statements made by a few speakers, and I just want to make sure I emphasize it was just a few speakers, just a couple of people. It's my opinion that singling out one segment of our student population as normal, as those people said, as in normal white students or normal cisgender kids, is by omission purposely insinuating that the other segments of our student population are somehow abnormal. And that's harmful, disrespectful, and wrong. What is normal is a school district made up of people and students of different religions, nationalities, cognitive abilities, skin colors, gender identities, and physical abilities. Every child has the right to an equal, safe, and protective environment. I also wanted to mention that I support teachers, and as a teacher, I know firsthand what it takes to be a teacher, and no one who has not been a teacher will ever know what goes into teaching. I know there are a lot of teachers here tonight, well, some teachers, some left already, but it may sometimes feel like a thankless job listening to some people tearing you down and criticizing you for things that those very people are unable, untrained, unfit, and unwilling to do. I also reject the statement that teachers are groomers or that LGBTQ people are mentally ill or deviant. One only needs to do a simple Google search to learn about cultures around the world that have long recognized and acknowledged the existence of 2 or more genders. These cultures often have indigenous or traditional understandings of gender that go way beyond the binary framework of male and female and have embraced these expressions for many generations. I also want everyone here to recognize that Old Bridge students are leaving schools as so much more than functional adults. They are leaving as extraordinary people. I recognize and appreciate the legitimacy of a policy dispute, whether or not we agree, but I reject the demonization of those with whom we disagree. There is a legitimate policy discussion to be had, and I appreciate the people with views on all sides of the issue who have come forward and spoken out in a respectful, informed manner. I respectfully request that we stand together in rejecting hateful and damaging rhetoric. I invite my fellow board members to reject this rhetoric as well. It does nothing to help us come together to make decisions for our students and only serves to divide us. Our kids deserve better.
Yes, I'll have to speak. I had more pep in my step about an hour ago. At the last committee meeting, I suggested revising policy 5756, only to be advised that we would face legal action that comes with legal expenses. I'm not prepared to be fiscally irresponsible. Now, I still feel strong on student safety and possible outcomes. I feel like the policy is antiquated, yes, and should be modernized. But I don't have any regrets going down the revision path because it forced my hand to dig deeper with my due diligence. If we repeal policy 5756, what did we accomplish? We have policy 5750, which the young lady in the back was asking. Policy 5750 is the equal education opportunity, basically to not discriminate. The Board of Education directs that all students enrolled in the schools of this district shall be afforded equal educational opportunities in strict accordance with the law. No student shall be denied access or to benefit from any education program or activity from a co-curriculum or athletic activity on the basis of the student's race, color, creed, religion, national origin, ancestry, age, marital status, affectational or sexual orientation, gender identity, or expression. Everybody's invited to the table, okay? So even if we got rid of the policy 5750 stands behind the fact that it wouldn't stand, okay? So, but what would we accomplish? Removing that single layer of protection for those students that need it the most. Now a taste of reality. I get the national attention that this is getting, but we need to concern ourselves with our 4 walls. Things that are happening here in Old Bridge. Nothing like this is going on in our school system. How can I say that? I, like some other board members, have literally walked the walk of our school district. I have met and spoke with every elementary school principal along with most of their teachers and staff. And at the elementary level, there is no issue. Our teachers and staff treat our kids like their own. Most importantly, I've developed a great relationship with Dr. Sasso and the 4 vice principals of the high school, where most of the questionable activity would take place. And for those who don't know, the vice principals stay with their class from start to finish, giving them a solid relationship with their students. And I quote from those I spoke to, 0 issues in our high school. I can appreciate hearing viewpoints from non-residents during our hearing of the residents, which I still haven't wrapped my arms around. I just don't get that. But our mission is to manage the process in Old Bridge. That's the mission of the Board of Education of Old Bridge, to manage what's happening here. And to wake up 10 years later to realize that this policy exists, not due to any instances, just due to political rhetoric, obviously Old Bridge is doing their job. If you're in the role of a parent or a guardian and participate in the chain of events that are made available to you, i.e. open dialogue with your child's teachers, parent-teacher conference, there's not going to be any surprises. I mentioned this at the policy meeting. When I went to my child's parent-teacher conference, I didn't care about her grades. I see it on the parent portal. I was more concerned about her welfare. Is she talking to other kids? Is she hiding in the corner? Does she wear sunglasses? But she doesn't. You know, she does what we raised her to do. And to reiterate, you know, teachers are not prohibited to talk to the parents. As Mr. Cittadino said, they can't lie to you, you know. So KYC is a term that's used in my industry. It's called Know Your Customer. That's how we recommend, I'm a financial advisor by trade, that's how we recommend products, find out a client's risk tolerance. So KYC is Know Your Customer, but I think it's appropriate to use under this setting, which is Know Your Child. KYC should be Know Your Child, know what's going on, which most of the parents have demonstrated. We see most kids here tonight are kids that are dealing with the situation. Kids aren't, and they're brave enough to come to the podium. I don't see any kids that are coming here that feel like they're threatened by the trans community. Not one child came up here, but we have it the other way around. To me, this is going to be an opportunity to stimulate the uncomfortable conversations. And basically, this policy has been around for 9 years. My daughter's been an Old Bridge student for 8 years. I haven't heard one thing. So, but I would recommend that we do come up with something, because we can't have these meetings every week and keep hearing the same thing. I would recommend the board, we have to either vote that we're going to keep the policy or repeal the policy, but I don't think it's fair to the community to keep repeating themselves. Thank you.
Any other board members?
I agree with Jay. Like, I love hearing everybody. Still don't get why people from that don't have a vested interest come. I respect that you give your time, but I think we need to make a ruling what we're doing, because we have other great things to do, and this prohibits that.
Okay, any new business?
I think we should make sure that clock is the right time, because it's an
It's
hour.
not. It's not wrong.
I know, and every time, right, and every time I see it, I have a little bit of like horror, and then I realize it's not set correctly.
I do have some new business. I'd like to thank Dave and the administration team for protecting our students and taking the appropriate actions. I do want to call out to my fellow board members. The superintendent eval that was given to us in July and the board evals that were given to us last week have not been filled out by all board members. We have a duty to do that, so please go back and check your emails, and please do our due diligence. The one thing I did want to address from tonight's conversation is transgender goes both ways. It's not just males changing over to females in the bathroom. We do have females that feel more comfortable as a male. So if we're going to talk about the community, let's talk about the whole community. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, we will not be going into executive session.
I have a question.
Yes.
Jay and I both asked, do one of us have to make a motion to not vote on it, or what?
So
like, how do we not keep kicking the can?
You can't really make a motion to not vote on it, even in New Jersey. If the pleasure of the board is to make a change, somebody could choose to make that motion, and it would need a majority of those of you present. If the board does not take action, the board is saying that its policy 5756 remains in place, just like all your other policies. No action means status quo. So the only way to really call the question is to propose the abolishment of the policy, and that is not what you appear to be proposing. So if there is no board action, the policy remains in place, just like all your other policies.
I'll keep my mouth shut.
But just to reiterate, I just think we should have something formal. So if we could, doesn't be today, but a straw vote or something just to conclude it, just to, I don't know how it works, but.
Could there be a resolution from the board that they support an existing policy?
Yeah, it would be an acknowledgement. It's not action because you're not changing anything. If you want to take a straw poll, it would not really be a vote or an action of the board, but it could be the expression of the board's consensus. So you could do that if you chose to do that. Can you use your microphone?
I'm sorry.
could you explain what the 3 ways that things can get put on the agenda for the next regular meeting?
Well, you can have it put on by the board president. An agenda item can be added by the board president. Agenda item can be added by the superintendent, or an agenda item can be added because 3 or more board members requested it be added. We're also under new business right now. This is a hot mic situation. If somebody wants to make a motion right now, feel free to do so, Mr. Weber.
Not now. I haven't decided how I'm voting.
Okay. Those are the 3 ways.
So it could be added to the agenda for next regular meeting.
You could do it right now, either an acknowledgement, which would, as I said, be an informal action, or as I said before, if somebody wishes to make a motion to abolish, they could do that, and then it would require a second and a majority of the board.
Okay, so then I would like to make a motion to add it to the agenda for tonight, yeah? What, I can't see why not.
So what you're asking to add is which side of this? Just to be clear.
Well, I mean, so based on what you said, so we would have to be, obviously it's a policy that's in force.
Yes.
So you can't vote on something that already exists.
Right, it would just be, if you want to, if you're speaking, and I don't know, but if you're speaking in favor of 5756, then you're asking the board to acknowledge support of it. If you're speaking against it, that would be a motion to abolish the policy.
Okay, so.
Entirely up to you. I'm not sure where you were.
I personally, my opinion after hearing the residents and going do my own due diligence would be to not repeal the policy.
So do you, so you could make a motion for an informal board acknowledgement of support for 5756, meaning to keep it in place.
I could do that now.
Could we also at the same time put forward a motion with 3 votes to put it on a regular agenda, so we hopefully have all 9 board members here rather than just 8?
Mr. Slade was making a motion first, but yes, the answer is yes. You wouldn't make a motion to have 3 people ask. You would just have 3 people ask. And that could be done through the superintendent's office or Mr. Mara's office between now and your December meeting. But Mr. Slade, you wanted to make that motion to?
100%. We have to.
I'll second.
Yeah, we have to move on.
I'll be number 2.
Mr. Pardon, I have a question. One gentleman came up before and said, you have to use common sense. Can this be tabled and put on a ballot for next year for the entire community to vote on it?
I'm sorry. Do you mean the entire new board, or do you mean the entire community?
The entire community to vote on it.
No, no. You can't do a referendum on transgender rights. And the reason for that is, as Mr. Slade and Mr. Cittadino have said, this policy 5756 does not stand on its own. And somebody in Holmdel, when they were having this same conversation, said that their repeal of it did not change the New Jersey law against discrimination or the New Jersey State Interscholastic Athletic Association. So the rules remain in place. So no, we could not put it out to your voters to take action on. It is up to the board to take action, but you're just taking action, if anything, on the policy itself. The New Jersey law against discrimination is beyond your control. It exists. The requirements of the interscholastic sports are beyond your control, but the board can state its opinion and can either keep this policy in place or choose to do something different.
Thank you.
What is the emergency for not having a full board vote on this in a regular manner? I've been on the board for the better part of 30 years.
Because we've been talking about this for a month.
So just for clarification.
I'm asking the attorney a question. I'd like to let me finish, please.
I don't think anyone has stated this as an emergent motion. I think your question is a fair one. You have 1 board member missing, but if you can reach board consensus tonight, Mr. Slade has proposed that, Ms. Lent has seconded it, so we're just at discussion on that informal consensus at this point.
So am I correct in assuming then all we need is 1 more board member to make the 3 board members needed to put it on, correct?
No, you're taking this action on acknowledgement right now. We are in discussion post-second on this action, although it is an informal action, and there's no way to make it formal because your policy is already in place.
Yeah, but you got 3 people coming in too next time.
So-
We don't negotiate.
Can we call the question?
All right,
And also,
any-
Mr. Parton, even when there's a new board, it could be brought up again. It's not just today, it could be brought up every meeting.
Absolutely true.
Yeah, so it's not just confined to today's
As it
meeting.
has.
You could, if you, we could bring this up every month, depending, regardless who's here.
That is the board's right, and that's
Yeah.
the public's right as well.
Just,
Mr. President, I'd like to call the question.
All right, any other discussion on this motion? Okay, roll call?
So
So
the
yeah,
roll
so
call-
we are voting to acknowledge the policy 5756 in place?
Acknowledge support and keeping, just acknowledging support of 5756.
And it's been,
A yes means support, a no means no support. It would not be abolished if this motion fails. It's just a question of board support.
and the motion is by Jay Slade and Lisa Lent. So, Ms. D'Antonio, yes or no?
Yes.
Ms. Jodry?
Yes.
Ms. Lent?
Yes.
Mr. Singh?
no.
Mr. Slade?
Yes.
Mr. Silikowski? Mr. Silikowski?
No.
Mr. Weber?
No.
Mr. Giordano?
Abstain.
What, I'm sorry?
Abstain.
Abstain. 4, 1, 2. So it's 4-3, 4 yeses, 3 noes, 1 abstentions.
So you have board consensus and support.
Any other new business? Okay, as mentioned before, there's no executive session, so can I have a motion to adjourn?
Lent will move it.
Wait a
Jodry will
second.
second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? The board is adjourned at 10:27 PM. Happy Thanksgiving.